Chapter 304. If he hadn't met Lin Yuemei, Yunlan would have followed his family's arrangements and married Madame and before taking Qin Jianmei as his concubine. 2 months after meeting Qin Jianmei, however, Yunlan met Lin Yuemei at a flower viewing party. When Lin Yuemei walked leisurely out of the peach blossom forest, Yunlan finally understood what it meant to be 10,000 years in a single glance. Ever since then he had been deeply in love with Lin Yuemei. Even when he found out that Lin Yuemei already belonged to someone else, Yunlan couldn't stop his unrequited love for her. At the time Lin Yuemei was in love with her good friend Long Yin. When the two of them met for a stroll, she often brought him along. Yunlan could only watch helplessly as his beloved girl got together with another man, but he could do nothing about it. Just as Yunlan thought that he would never be able to be with the girl he loved, Long Yin suddenly disappeared. In order to make Lin Yuemei give up on Long Yin, the Lin family began to arrange a marriage for her. Just as Lin Yuemei was in despair, Yunlan appeared like a savior, showing his concern for her in every possible way. At first, Lin Yuemei wasn't willing to marry him. Eventually, however, Yunlan proposed to marry her and promised that he wouldn't touch her for the next 2 years. If Long Yin returned within 2 years, he would divorce her to help the two of them. At the time, Lin Yuemei was being pressured by her family. Moved by Yunlan's sincerity, she finally agreed to marry Yunlan. Yunlan had even threatened to break off the engagement, and the Yun family had finally agreed to take Lin Yuemei as his official wife. However, the condition was that he had to marry Madame N as well. In the end, Yunlan got what he wanted, marrying his beloved Lin Yuemei. But what he didn't know was that on the night of his wedding, a young girl had been standing in a corner of the Yun estate, tears streaming down her cheeks. Yunlan had originally planned on watching Madame Qin and Liu fight, but after hearing Qin Jianmei's ambitious words, a murderous glint flashed across his eyes. "It'll be easy for me to have your daughter." Liu turned to Qin Jianmei. "Put away this puppet right now, or you won't be able to see your daughter for the rest of your life." How arrogant. Qin Jianmei was so angry that she laughed and said, "You used my most precious person to threaten me, I can also use your most precious thing to threaten you." As soon as Qin Jianmei finished speaking, she pointed in Yun Ruoyan's direction. The demonic puppet immediately turned its head toward Yun Ruoyan and spat out 2 mouthfuls of demonic energy, one black and one red. The 2 waves of demonic energy intertwined in midair, then morphed into a dozen demonic hands that reached for Yun Ruoyan's head. "Protect Miss Yun." Under Sunan's command, the 5 ink guards, including the injured ones, surrounded Yun Ruoyan and protected her tightly. Liu frowned. On the Xuanhuan continent, Yun Ruoyan's 8th rank cultivation was considered high. But against a demonic puppet that didn't belong to the Xuanhuan continent, Yun Ruoyan was still in great danger. Liu wanted to turn around to save Yun Ruoyan, but Qin Jianmei waved her hand, and the demonic hands that had retreated to the side immediately surrounded Liu again, attacking him ferociously. Sunan and the other ink guards were all stronger than Yun Ruoyan, but the demonic hands were too strange and numerous. Soon, Sunan and the rest of the ink guards found themselves at a disadvantage. 2 of the MO guards had their arms and legs grabbed by a few demonic hands. They were lifted up and sent flying. One of the demonic hands grabbed Sunan's wrist, and the other tried to snatch away his sword. Yun Ruoyan shouted and raised the scarlet eye sword in her hand. When Sunan and the others fought against the demonic hands, they had to infuse spiritual energy into their weapons in order to deal as little damage as possible. But when Yun Ruoyan's scarlet eye sword struck the demonic hands, a creaking sound rang out. "Miss Yun, your sword can destroy demonic energy," Sunan exclaimed. "Move aside and let me do it," Yun Ruoyan replied. With the scarlet eye sword in hand, Yun Ruoyan blocked the rest of the ink guards behind her and charged out of the demonic hands as if she were chopping vegetables. By the time Yun Ruoyan had mostly destroyed the demonic hands around her, she saw that Liu had once again been surrounded by a horde of demonic hands. "Sunan, take care of yourselves." Yun Ruoyan gritted her teeth and charged at the demonic puppet, sword in hand. "You're courting death." Qin Jianmei laughed coldly as she directed the demonic puppet to swing its massive fist at Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan leaped up and dodged the attack. At the same time, she swung her sword at the puppet's giant hand. The scarlet eye sword struck the puppet's hand like a hot iron on a piece of roasted meat. Clearly feeling the pain, the demonic puppet swung its arm and flung Yun Ruoyan away. Yun Ruoyan landed lightly on the ground and faced off against the puppet with the scarlet eye sword in hand. This time the puppet seemed to be interested. Without Qin Jianmei's command, it focused its attention on Yun Ruoyan. After losing the puppet's attention, the attacks of the demonic hands surrounding Liu weakened. He looked down and saw Xuanhuan facing off against the golem. He couldn't help calling out, "Fool, go back. You're no match for it." But it was too late. The puppet suddenly opened its mouth twice as wide as before and spat out two streams of demonic energy, one red and one black. The black and red demonic energy transformed into four black and red demonic hands that grabbed at Xuanhuan's head. Xuanhuan swung her sword and chopped off one of the hands, but the other three seized the opportunity to attack her. Xuanhuan's neck, wrist and one ankle were all grabbed. With a loud crack, her wrist was broken. The scarlet eye sword fell to the ground, and Xuanhuan's entire body was lifted into the air. "Surrender now or I'll kill her." Qin Jianmei threatened Liemo. Liemo had no choice but to give up all resistance and allow himself to be captured by the demonic hands. When Yun Maxiao saw that Xuanhuan and Liemo had been captured, he couldn't hold himself back any longer. "Father, I can't wait any longer." He kicked open the door to the cottage, and a yellow sword aura appeared beneath his feet as he flew toward Xuanhuan. When Qin Jianmei turned around and saw her father, she paused for a moment before smiling. "You've come at the right time. Once you're dead, Ruoyu will have one less opponent in the Yun family." Yun Maxiao unsheathed the sword by his waist and slashed at the demonic hands around Xuanhuan's neck. Xuanhuan struggled and yelled, "Behind you!" When Yun Maxiao turned around, he saw a red sword made of demonic energy stabbing towards his chest. Yun Maxiao thought he was dead for sure, but when the red demonic chi sword was inches away from his chest, it suddenly vanished into thin air. Not only that, but the demonic hand that was holding Xuanhuan and Liemo also disappeared. Yun Maxiao caught Xuanhuan and landed on the ground with Liemo. On the other side, Qin Jianmei looked down at the tip of the sword that had pierced through her heart and into her body. Her eyes widened. She turned around in disbelief, only to see Yunlan's cold, icy face. "Jianmei, how did you end up like this?" Yunlan's voice was cold, filled with disappointment and heartlessness. "How did I end up like this?" Qin Jianmei looked at Yunlan and suddenly laughed. "How did I end up like this?" Qin Jianmei repeated these words as she felt the cold blade of the sword slowly graze her heart. Then abruptly it pulled away. As the light faded away, darkness enveloped her. Qin Jianmei felt that she had fallen into a pitch-black space that was silent and devoid of light. "Hit her, hit her. She's a demon." Suddenly a child's voice rang out, and an image slowly unfolded. In the image, a group of children surrounded a little girl and berated her. "She's from the shamanic tribe and shamanic tribesmen are all demons. We won't play with her, we'll ignore her." The children began to leave, leaving the little girl crying quietly against the wall. Just as the little girl was about to cry, a middle-aged man appeared in front of her. When the little girl raised her head and saw the middle-aged man, large droplets of tears flowed down her cheeks. "Daddy, we're not demons. Daddy, go tell them that I'm not a demon." However, the middle-aged man did not console the little girl. The man reached out and slapped the little girl's face. "How many times have I told you? Don't tell anyone that we're from the shamanic tribe. Why did you still say it? Now we're going to move again. We're going to be homeless again." The man roughly pulled the little girl up from the ground and dragged her all the way away. The image slowly disappeared and another image unfolded. It was a small bridge on the surface of a lake. On the bridge stood a handsome youth and a beautiful girl. "Jianmei, you like me, don't you?" the youth asked the girl. The girl lowered her head under the youth's gaze. "You definitely like me." The youth did not wait for the girl to finish before asking, "Otherwise, why would you blush the moment you see me? Do you blush when you see other men?" "I don't." The girl continued to lower her head, not looking at her plain dress. "You don't what?" The boy smiled and pressed. "You don't like me or you don't blush?" I don't." The girl's ears were red as she nervously pinched the hem of her dress. However, the youth smiled as he held her hand and said, "Jianmei, if you like me, how about I marry you? However, with your status, I'm afraid you can only be a concubine if you marry me. Are you willing?" Chapter 305. The girl blushed and pursed her lips. The word yes was stuck between her teeth, but she couldn't say it. However, she kept repeating in her heart, I do. Stop dreaming." Just as the previous image disappeared, a man's angry voice rang out. An old man appeared in the new image. He pointed at the girl and scolded, "Young Master Yun is getting married today, and he's even marrying a wife and a concubine. He's long forgotten about you, so stop dreaming." "No, he said he would marry me, he said it." The girl lay on the wooden table and said painfully, "What is his identity and what is your identity?" Don't be silly and stay at home obediently. Don't go to the Yun family and embarrass me. After the old man finished speaking, he walked towards the door with a lock in his hand. The girl looked at the old man's back and suddenly stood up. Father, please don't lock me up at home. The girl shouted as she rushed towards the door. The old man stopped the girl and wanted to push her back into the room. The girl resisted with all her might and pushed the old man to the side. Then she ran out the door. The old man stumbled and hit his head on the wall behind the door. The girl ran out of the house and ran towards the Yun manor. By the time she reached the door, it was already nightfall. The girl ran to the door but was stopped by the doorman. She begged the doorman to let her in to see young Master Yun, but the doorman just sneered at her. Our young master is very busy marrying a wife and a concubine. Miss Qin, don't come anymore. Young master won't see you even if you come, and master and madam won't be happy to see you. Don't ask for trouble, okay? The girl couldn't enter the door and the doorman didn't let her stand at the door. She could only stand in the corner and look at the Yun manor that was so close yet so far away. The Yun manor was decorated with lanterns and streamers. The bright red lanterns illuminated the Yun manor like it was in a sea of fire. Only the girl felt like she had fallen into an ice cellar. The girl sat outside the residence of Yun for the whole night. When she returned home the next day, she found her father dead in the corner of the wall behind the door. His head had been smashed open and blood was flowing everywhere. The young girl recalled that she was the one who killed her father. Her heart was already like dead ashes, and now she didn't want to live anymore. She pulled out the dagger from the old man's waist and wanted to end her life on the spot. But just as she pulled out the dagger, she suddenly saw a corner of a black book peeking out from the old man's robes. She reached out and picked up the book. What was recorded in the book was the sacrificial refining technique that he had always been curious about since he was young, but his father had never mentioned it. The girl put down the knife in her hand and began to carefully read the contents of the book. The deathly gray in her eyes gradually reignited, and the fire in her eyes burned more and more fiercely. In the end, there was even the color of blood. When the girl finished the last page of the book, she slowly put down the book and looked at her father, who had long since disappeared. This was the father who had raised her, but who had never shown her even the slightest bit of warmth. The girl bit the corner of her lips until it bled. A vicious look appeared in her eyes. She picked up the dagger by her side and slowly raised it. She closed her eyes and stabbed the dagger into the old man's chest. Ah! Qin Jianmei covered her eyes. Madame Qin, are you still not going to give up? Li Mo's voice rang out in Madame Qin's ears. In order to refine a demonic puppet, you wouldn't even spare your own father's heart. You deserve to die. Qin Jianmei covered her eyes, her body trembling. Li Mo, is this enough to destroy this demonic puppet? Yun Ruoyan asked softly. At that moment, Li Mo and Yun Ruoyan were floating in midair on their swords. Both of them pointed their swords at the demonic puppet's head, and threads of spiritual energy flowed from their fingers into it. Yun Maxiao, Yun Lan, and a few of the Mo guards were standing on the ground watching the scene unfold. Yun Lan stood with his hands behind his back. Beside him lay Qin Jianmei, who had been killed by his sword. Mother told me that demonic puppets are formed from the spiritual energy of the person who refined them, Li Mo explained to Yun Ruoyan. Li Mo explained to Yun Ruoyan that different people's psychokinesis was different in nature. Some people's psychokinesis was good, while others was evil. Qin Jianmei's spiritual energy was filled with resentment. Although she was dead, all of her resentment was hidden within the demonic puppet. As long as the resentment wasn't extinguished, the puppet would continue to exist. If they wanted to completely destroy the puppet, they would have to find a way to draw out all of her resentment and then destroy it. If they couldn't, then once Qin Jianmei's resentment and the puppet completely fused, the puppet would become even more frightening. I'm currently using spiritual energy to draw out Qin Jianmei's resentment. If she can dissipate on her own, that would be best. If not, then we'll have to destroy her, Li Mo instructed. Focus your attention and help me force out all of her resentment. Perhaps you'll be able to see images of your mother. All right. Yun Ruoyan nodded, continuing to release her spiritual energy with Li Mo. Qin Jianmei, in her resentment form, was completely enveloped by Li Mo and Yun Ruoyan's spiritual energy. The images she recalled made her tremble all over, but even though she covered her eyes, they still appeared in her mind. In those images, Qin Jianmei began to refine the Buddha of the afterlife and the Bodhisattva of reincarnation, each of which contained half of her father's heart. She seemed to have found a new reason to live. She continued to visit the various families, including the Yun family, as a pill master. The next time Qin Jianmei saw Yun Lan, it was 2 years later. He was playing with a newborn baby boy with his wife, and he looked so happy. All of his attention was focused on his wife and the child in his arms, so much so that he didn't recognize her at first glance. Qin Jianmei looked at the woman lying on the bed. She was so beautiful that even though she was jealous, she had to admit that she was beautiful. However, the beautiful woman wasn't happy at all. Instead, she fell ill because of her depression. Afterwards, Qin Jianmei would often visit the Yun Manor and Lin Yuemei's residence as a pill master. Yun Lan eventually recognized her, but Qin Jianmei appeared indifferent, as if their past didn't affect her at all. In fact, this earned her Yun Lan's respect. Because of her deliberate attempts to get close to Lin Yuemei, Qin Jianmei gradually became Lin Yuemei's friend. Lin Yuemei had no one to talk to in the Yun Manor, and she began to turn Qin Jianmei into a confidant. From Lin Yuemei's confidences, Qin Jianmei learned that she didn't actually like Yun Lan, and that Lin Yuemei had always been in love with a man named Long Yin. She even learned that the Yun family had secretly drugged Lin Yuemei's tea in order to have an heir, causing her to have a night of passion with Yun Lan. Lin Yuemei didn't know how Qin Jianmei felt when she heard this. What she had been longing for was worthless in the eyes of another woman. Since that was the case, why did she have to suffer like this? With this thought in mind, Qin Jianmei unwittingly placed the mother-child parasite poison in Lin Yuemei's medicine. She didn't directly kill Lin Yuemei, because Lin Yuemei was the reason she was allowed to visit the Yun Manor. The scene quickly changed. One day Lin Yuemei told her that the man she loved had returned. It turned out that he hadn't left without saying goodbye, but he had been forced to leave because of an important matter. When the man left, he didn't have time to say goodbye to her. Instead, he gave Yun Lan a letter and asked her to pass it to him. However, Yun Lan secretly hid the letter. Lin Yuemei flew into a rage and quarreled with Yun Lan. Then she abandoned her young child and left on her own, never to return. Qin Jianmei knew that Lin Yuemei must have eloped with Long Yin, but no one knew where they had gone. Yun Lan didn't search for her, nor did he announce it. Almost no one knew that Lin Yuemei had gone missing, except for Qin Jianmei. In the time that Lin Yuemei had left, Qin Jianmei had become Yun Lan's understanding flower, comforting him greatly. Just as Qin Jianmei felt that Yun Lan was gradually developing feelings for her, Lin Yuemei had returned. Yun Lan once again threw Qin Jianmei to the back of his mind, focusing all his attention on Lin Yuemei. Lin Yuemei's body was extremely weak, and Qin Jianmei was in charge of nursing her. Then she discovered that Lin Yuemei was nearly 2 months pregnant. Qin Jianmei secretly told Yun Lan about this, but Yun Lan told her not to spread the news and to pretend that he knew nothing. Qin Jianmei watched as Yun Lan treated a woman who didn't love him, betrayed him, and was even pregnant with someone else's child, while ignoring her love for Lin Yuemei. All the jealousy in her heart turned into hatred for Lin Yuemei. Again and again she increased the dosage of the broodmother parasite. Finally, in the first year of Yun Ruoyan's life, when she was a year old, the broodmother parasite exploded in Lin Yuemei's body. During this time, Yun Lan found Physician Tseng to treat Lin Yuemei, but Qin Jianmei used him to threaten Physician Tseng into poisoning Lin Yuemei, causing her to die soon after. Not long after Lin Yuemei's death, Qin Jianmei married Yun Lan as his concubine. Qin Jianmei thought that her wish had finally been fulfilled, but not long after Yun Lan married 2 concubines in succession, each of whom bore a striking resemblance to Lin Yuemei. Yun Lan quickly forgot about Qin Jianmei. Only then did she realize that Yun Lan's heart would never belong to her. From then on, Qin Jianmei devoted herself to refining the demonic puppet, rarely leaving her cottage. A decade passed, and by this time, everyone had almost forgotten about her existence. It was only when Yun Ruoyu was grounded at home for offending Yun Ruoyan that Qin Jianmei once again entered the limelight. By then, Qin Jianmei was on the verge of completing her demonic puppet refinement. With great ambition, she had hoped to make up for all the years she had spent in Yun Ruoyu's care. She had brought Yun Ruoyu along with her to refine the demonic puppet, giving her a beautiful blueprint. However, all of this had been shattered by Yun Ruoyan and Liu Mo, and she had ended up in her current predicament. Chapter 306. When the images finally disappeared, Qin Jianmei was still wrapped up in Yun Ruoyan and Liu Mo's spiritual energy, trembling all over. The images that had appeared before her eyes were all images of a past that she couldn't bear to look back on. She had thought that, as long as no one knew about it, it wouldn't affect her in the slightest. When she had made up her mind to do this, she had buried her conscience, believing that she wouldn't feel any remorse. But when she saw the wooden expression on her face as she dug her father's heart out of his chest, the callous expression on her face as she placed the poison in Lin Yuemei's medicine, the sinister expression on her face as she used her daughter to send Madame and a medicine that could drive a person insane. When these images reappeared before her eyes, she didn't dare face them. Her entire body trembled in fear. As Liemo released his spiritual energy, he looked at Xuanhuan. The images clearly showed how Xuanhuan's mother, Lin Yueme, had been poisoned by Qin Jianmei, and that her father wasn't Yunlan, but a man named Long Yin. Liemo didn't know that Xuanhuan had long known about her parentage, so he was very worried for her. However, Xuanhuan was unexpectedly resolute and calm, and he was relieved to turn his attention back to Qin Jianmei's resentment. On the ground, Yunlan looked up at the three figures in midair, his brows tightly knitted together. Back in the alternate dimension, he had seen demonic puppets being slaughtered. Under normal circumstances, as long as a low-level demonic chi puppet killed its refiner, the puppet would disappear along with it. Only a high-level demonic chi puppet could reach the point where it could fuse with its refiner's psyche power. Yunlan hadn't expected Qin Jianmei's demonic puppet to have reached such a level. Yunlan looked at Qin Jianmei's lifeless corpse by his side, and his eyes darkened. Within the demonic puppet's body, Qin Jianmei existed in the form of spiritual energy. Both Liemo and Xuanhuan had seen everything that had happened. Madam Qin, you've already paid the price for your actions. You're already dead, so don't be so stubborn. Liemo's voice reverberated throughout the demonic puppet's body. I'm already dead? Liemo's words caused Qin Jianmei to suddenly realize that she was already dead. She raised her head to look at her surroundings, then laughed bitterly. I've been a vagabond for half my life, hoping to change my fate, but this is the end. Why is God so unfair to me? I can't accept this. Seeing Qin Jianmei in such a miserable state, Xuanhuan should have been delighted. But because of her past life's experiences, Xuanhuan could empathize with her pain and indignation. None of them were originally evil people, but because of fate they fell into the whirlpool of fate. One wrong step led to many wrong steps, and in the end they were beyond redemption. In her past life, Xuanhuan had been weak and gullible, resulting in a tragic end. Qin Jianmei, on the other hand, listened to Yunlan's sweet words and planted feelings for someone who didn't love her at all. In the end, she went astray and didn't end well either. Madam Qin, Xuanhuan began. Do you believe in reincarnation? If fate gave you another chance to reincarnate, would you live the same way you did in this life? Xuanhuan's sudden question startled Qin Jianmei. The shamanic tribe believed in reincarnation, which was why they used the Buddhas of the past and Bodhisattvas of the present as sacrificial offerings. However, reincarnation were illusory, and even if they believed in it, they couldn't be sure. If there were reincarnation, I'd keep my eyes open, and I'd never trust a man's promises so easily again. I'd rely on my own abilities, and even if I had to live a simple and ordinary life, I'd never do such heartless things again, Qin Jianmei declared. In that case, why don't you let go of your obsession, disperse the demonic puppet, and go where you belong? Who knows, perhaps you'll have a chance to start anew in your next life. Qin Jianmei was stunned again. After a while she said, I harmed your mother and you. Don't you hate me? Xuanhuan, you should be itching to turn me into dust. Xuanhuan hadn't expected Qin Jianmei to recognize her, and she quickly calmed down. You're already dead and I've avenged you. However, if you still want to cause trouble, I don't mind turning you into dust. Qin Jianmei suddenly laughed. Ruoyan, I actually quite like you. You're not at all like your mother. Your mother is beautiful, but she is not as beautiful as you. You are intelligent, smart and penetrating. Madam Qin, Xuanhuan sighed. I hope that you'll give yourself a chance. Ha 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 ha. Qin Jianmei laughed softly. A lifetime of bitterness, a lifetime of bitterness. To me, turning into dust might be the best outcome. As soon as Qin Jianmei finished speaking, the demonic puppet began to grow larger and larger, so much so that Xuanhuan and Liemo's spiritual energy couldn't suppress it any longer. The moment Lin Yueme was killed by Yunlan's sword, the motionless demonic puppet began to move. There was a loud bang. The demonic puppet swung its gigantic fists at Liemo and Xuanhuan. Liemo dodged the attack with his sword, but the puppet's spiritual energy suppression on Qin Jianmei was also broken. Oh no, Liemo murmured. The demonic puppet's about to completely fuse with the demonic puppet. Xuanhuan's scarlet eye appeared in her hands, and Liemo summoned a fireball and an icicle. The two of them were prepared for battle at a moment's notice. However, the demonic chi puppet turned its huge body around and locked its attack on Yunlan. This was the man she had loved all her life, but had never been able to possess. Even if I'm reduced to dust, I'll take you down with me. Qin Jianmei shouted, and the demonic puppet spat out 2 streams of demonic energy, one black and one red, at Yunlan. The 2 streams of demonic energy transformed into 2 gigantic demonic hands that lunged at Yunlan. Although they were both demonic hands, they were imbued with powerful demonic energy. The demonic energy formed a strong gust of wind that blew Su Nan Mo Wei, and even Yun Ma Xiao into a corner. Only Yunlan seemed unaffected. His hands were clasped behind his back, and he stared at the demonic hands as they reached for him. One of the 2 demonic hands grabbed Yunlan's neck, while the other grabbed his legs and lifted him up. Yunlan, you're my demonic energy. Only with your death can I be reborn. Qin Jinmei's demonic puppet raised its gigantic fist at Yunlan. With a loud boom, the fist came crashing down on Yunlan. However, Yunlan didn't die as she had hoped. Qin Jinmei felt a powerful force resisting her full-strength attack. Under the demonic puppet's fist, Yunlan's entire body glowed with a dazzling white spiritual energy. Xuanhuan knew that this white light was a spiritual barrier. Any 8th-rank blade master would have a spiritual barrier appear on the surface of their body in the face of extreme danger. However, if the level of the attack exceeded the cultivation of the cultivator, then the spiritual power film would be useless. Only when the level of the attack was lower than the level of the spiritual power film would the spiritual power film play a role in protecting the cultivator. When the difference in cultivation was large enough, the spirit power film could even reflect attacks. Zhui Yifeng had once been seriously injured by Li Mo's spiritual barrier. Yunlan's spiritual power membrane could actually resist the demonic qi puppet's attack. This meant that his current cultivation had already surpassed the demonic qi puppet's level. Xuanhuan was extremely shocked. Yunlan rarely revealed his cultivation in front of others, but she didn't expect his cultivation to be so high. So this is what it means to be a sword saint. Li Mo's voice rang out by Xuanhuan's ear. That cloudy sky fruit really helped him a lot. The white spiritual energy on the surface of Yunlan's body grew brighter and brighter, and the demonic puppet's fist was pushed further and further away by the spiritual barrier. With a bang, the demonic qi puppet's huge body was sent flying by Yunlan's spirit force film. It crashed into the wall behind it and collapsed the entire wall of the tea house. The white barrier around Yunlan's body slowly turned red. More accurately, it wasn't red but red flames. Yunlan also cultivated fire-attuned spiritual energy, but she didn't know what kind of external fire-attuned spiritual technique he had used to envelop his entire body in flames. The 2 black and red demonic hands quickly turned into gray smoke under the spiritual fire on the surface of Yunlan's body and disappeared. A blood-red sword light appeared beneath Yunlan's feet. Yunlan stepped on the sword and flew up, arriving before the demonic energy puppet. Yunlan extended a hand toward the demonic puppet's head, and a beam of spiritual energy appeared in his hand, piercing into the puppet's head and wrapping around Qin Jinmei's resentment. Then Yunlan retracted the beam of spiritual energy and pulled Qin Jinmei out of the puppet's body. You want to kill me? Yunlan stared at Qin Jinmei's resentment. Why? I want to kill you, but it looks like I won't be able to. Qin Jinmei's face was bitter. I've devoted my entire life to you, but this is how I've ended up. You've caused me so much harm, so of course I have to kill you. Laughable. Yunlan looked at Qin Jinmei disdainfully. You harmed Yueme, so I won't forgive you. Yunlan's voice was cold, without a trace of warmth, or even a trace of sadness or disappointment. Yunlan, have I never existed in your heart? Qin Jinmei asked, unwilling to give up. Yunlan's deep eyes narrowed. I've had many women in my life, but apart from Yueme, they're all the same to me. I thought that you'd be a little different from the others, but it looks like you're just more foolish than they are. As Yunlan spoke, the spiritual fire on his body slowly spread to the pillar of spiritual energy in his hand, and to Qin Jinmei's spiritual energy. I'm foolish and my death isn't worth pitying. All I ask is that you treat Ruoyu well. She's your blood. Before Qin Jinmei could finish speaking, she turned into ashes and vanished into nothingness. Chapter 307. Qin Jinmei's resentment was burned to ashes by Yunlan's spiritual fire, and the massive demonic energy puppet also turned to ash with Lin Yuemei's death. The surroundings finally returned to normal. Father. Yunlan stood on the blood-red sword for a long time. Worried, Yun Ma Xiao walked up to him and called out to him. When Yunlan heard Yun Ma Xiao calling him, he turned his head and looked down. When his gaze met Yunhuan's, Yunhuan seemed to see a trace of sadness in his eyes, but it was only for a moment. Must be an illusion, Yunhuan thought. Father, are you all right? Yun Ma Xiao asked, concerned. Yunlan shook his head and descended on his sword. Yun Ruoyan was a little worried that Yun Lan had recognized her. After all, even Qin Jianmei had recognized her, and Yun Lan's eyesight was far superior to hers. Yun Ruoyan glanced at Liu Mo, who could see the worry in her eyes. He shook his head at her and pulled her toward Yun Lan. Right at this moment, Yun Lan staggered, and then he spat out a mouthful of blood. "Father, what's wrong?" Yun Ma Xiao helped his father up, and Liu Mo and Yun Ruoyan also stopped. "I'm fine." Yun Lan waved his hand, but his entire body went limp, and he collapsed into his father's arms. "Father." Yun Ruoyan couldn't help calling out. Just as she was about to step forward, Liu Mo pulled her back. "Official Yun's fine. He's only just reached the peak of the Sword Saint realm. Because he used the Cloud Sky fruit, his foundation isn't very stable. Furthermore, he used too much spiritual energy just now, so both his spiritual vortex and his body have suffered some damage." However, Liu Mo continued, "Master Yun is already a Sword Saint now, so this kind of injury won't threaten his life. He'll be able to fully recover after some time. Take advantage of this time to return to the capital. Perhaps the Imperial Guards will be arriving soon." Yun Ma Xiao instructed Yun Ruoyan and Liu Mo. Their battle this time had caused quite a commotion within the Imperial City, and it was certain that the commoners would be alarmed. Fortunately, the location Liu Mo had chosen was rather remote, so the commoners weren't injured or damaged too much. Liu Mo left with Yun Ruoyan and the guards. Just as Yun Ma Xiao and Yun Lan were about to leave, the Imperial Guards arrived. "Lord Yun, General Yun, what happened?" When the captain of the Imperial Guard saw the two of them in such a sorry state, he hurriedly stepped forward to inquire about their condition. "Send us back to the residence of Yun first, I will explain to you later." Yun Ma Xiao was the general of the Imperial City, and this Imperial bodyguard was his subordinate. Thus, he didn't dare ask too many questions and only nodded in agreement. "There's another body here. What should we do with it?" the guard captain asked as he pointed at Qin Jianmei's body. After Yun Lan returned to the manor, he lay in bed for 3 days and 3 nights before waking up. Yun Ruoyu walked out of her courtyard on the same night. The maids in her courtyard were startled to see her walking out of her room in a daze, asking her where she had gone and why she had suddenly left her room. Yun Ruoyu didn't know that she was missing at all. When she woke up from her bed, she thought that she had just slept. As soon as Yun Lan woke up, she spread the news that the Yun family's third aunt had succumbed to an illness. As for the true cause of Qin Jianmei's death, even Yun Ruoyu had no way of knowing, much less outsiders. Of course, outsiders didn't care. After all, she was just an aunt. Because she was a concubine, Qin Jianmei didn't have the right to enter the Yun family's ancestral grave. She could only find a slightly better plot of land outside and bury her in a hurry. Yun Ruoyan and Yun Ma Xiao didn't have to go, and only Yun Ruoyu wore mourning clothes. After the funeral, Yun Ruoyan made a special trip to Qin Jianmei's grave and burned a cloth bag in front of it. Liu Mo asked Yun Ruoyan, somewhat puzzled. "Shouldn't you hate her? She poisoned your mother and harmed you as well." "I used to hate the person who poisoned me, and when I suspected the Qin family, I hated her as well," Yun Ruoyan sighed. "But when I think of how I was severely injured on the tournament stage when I was a child, and how everyone despised me, she was the only one who saved me and guarded me for an entire night. I can't bring myself to hate her. No matter what her motives were, she gave me a sliver of hope when I was in despair. I'll remember this favor and I'll have to repay it." Yun Ruoyan watched as the cloth bag burned away, revealing the Bodhisattva and the reincarnated Buddha within. "These 2 statues are the faith of the shamanic tribe. Let's treat it as a token of my gratitude." Yun Ruoyan left with Liu Mo. Not long after the two of them left, a figure appeared in front of Qin Jianmei's grave. She hurriedly squatted down and put out the fire in front of the grave with some sand. Then she took off her mourning clothes and wrapped the 2 statues in her arms before leaving in a hurry. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Tomorrow was the eve of the new year. Kongming Academy was on vacation, and the Lin siblings had all returned home. During this time, Yun Ruoyan would go to the Lin Manor to play with the Qingqian sisters in the morning, then head to the Slaughtering King's Manor in the afternoon. At night, she would return to her own rooms to rest. The Yun matriarch, who had never been very strict with her, began to restrain her after her engagement to Liu Mo. She even sternly told her that she couldn't spend the night at her fiancé's house before the wedding. This was not only a rule but also a sign of a woman's self-respect. Yun Ruoyan nodded obediently. Every day she would have one more task, to pay her respects to the Slaughtering King's family after returning from the Slaughtering King's manor. At first, Yun Ruoyan was worried that Yun Lan would suspect her, But when she heard from her brother that Yunlan had asked him to investigate the identity of the black-white twin demons and had even given him a list of suspects, she and Liu Mo weren't among them. Only then did she relax. Yunlan didn't seem particularly concerned about Yun Ruoyan, but according to the Yun matriarch, her dowry had been prepared by Yunlan himself, and he hadn't hired anyone else. Yun Ruoyan's feelings toward Yunlan were extremely complicated. She had once hated and resented him, but now that she knew so much about him, she couldn't bring herself to hate or resent him. She couldn't bring herself to hate or resent him, and naturally she couldn't bring herself to kiss him. But when they met, she still called him father, and it wasn't as awkward as she'd expected. This must be a habit, Yun Ruoyan thought. On the eve of the new year, Yun Ruoyan accompanied the Yun matriarch to keep watch, and the Yun matriarch unwittingly dozed off. Yun Ruoyan and a few of her maids sneaked out of the room and waited by the fireplace for midnight. When midnight arrived, Yun Lan and Yun Maxiao arrived together, bringing with them the firecrackers that had recently become very popular in the capital. Xiao Lan woke the Yun matriarch up, and the maids took turns kowtowing to the Yun matriarch. The Yun matriarch cheerfully handed out red envelopes to everyone. The maids beamed with joy as they received their red envelopes, and the entire room was filled with a festive atmosphere. There was only one thing that made this festive atmosphere seem a little lacking: the Yun matriarch's sudden mention of Yun Ruoyu. Ever since Qin Jinmei's death, Yun Ruoyan seemed to have changed into a completely different person. She had moved from her own courtyard to the plum-clipping cottage, and she spent most of her days in seclusion. Yun Lan, send someone to visit Ruoyu tomorrow. She's quite pitiful after losing her mother, the Yun matriarch said. Mother, I'll have someone deliver dinner to her this evening. Don't worry, mother. She'll get better with time, Yun Lan replied. That's right, grandmother. It's a festive day, so please be happy, Yun Maxiao added. I'm going to light some fireworks, grandmother. I'm sure you'll like them. No one paid much attention to Yun Ruoyan's unusual behavior, and the crowd quickly returned to the festive atmosphere. This was the first new year that Yun Ruoyan had spent in the Yun household after reincarnating. Thinking back on it, she felt as though it had been a long year, as though she had made up for all her regrets from her past life. But as the scenes flashed through her mind, Yun Ruoyan felt as though the year had passed so quickly that she didn't have time to think about it. Danger after danger, challenge after challenge. All she did was bravely accept them, resist them, and not slack off in the slightest. When everything was over and she looked back, those dangers and challenges were nothing more than rocks in the river. She had stepped on them and crossed the turbulent river. Apart from her various gains and improvements, Yun Ruoyan felt that the most important thing was that she had gained the courage to face everything, as well as the self-awareness that she needed to strengthen herself even when she had a man to rely on. Bang bang bang. A series of fireworks exploded in the air, and the colorful fireworks illuminated the sky with colorful colors. Just like that, Yun Ruoyan's first year of life had passed, and a future filled with challenges and unknowns lay before her. After the end of the night watch, everyone returned to their own courtyards. Because Yun Ruoyan was in a relaxed mood, she allowed her exhaustion to overwhelm her. Along the way she called out sleepy, 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 and then closed her eyes. Shilan and Peony each took one of her arms and carried her to her bed. They carefully wiped her hands and face, took off her outer robes and covered her with a blanket. Only then did the two maidservants blow out the lamp and quietly close the door. As soon as the door closed, the back window opened soundlessly, and Liu Mo floated into the room. In the past, Yun Ruoyan would have woken up by now, but today she only flipped over on the bed, kicked off the blanket and continued to sleep. Liu Mo smirked, took off his outer robes and lay down by Yun Ruoyan's side. Only then did Yun Ruoyan sense that someone had arrived, but the familiar scent told her who it was. Without opening her eyes, she snuggled into Liu Mo's embrace like an obedient little animal. Why are you here at this hour? Yun Ruoyan murmured. It's the eve of the new year and I didn't want to spend it alone, Liu Mo replied. Yun Ruoyan could feel the coolness of Liu Mo's body, and she knew that he must have been waiting outside the window all morning, only entering the room when she returned. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but feel sorry for him. She reached out and hugged Liu Mo's waist tightly. Liu Mo, I'll spend the rest of the year with you, alright? Chapter 308. Time flew by, and soon the 29th day of the third month of the lunar calendar was Yun Ruoyan's birthday, as well as her coming of age. In the Li Kingdom, coming of age was extremely important to a girl, as it signified that she had reached adulthood and was ready for marriage. In large families, the importance of a girl's marriage was no less than that of a man's coronation ceremony. Furthermore, because Yun Ruoyan was the first daughter of the Yun family, a student of Kongming Academy, and the Slaughtering King's fiancée, her coming-of-age ceremony was even more extravagant. Sister Ruoyan, this dress is so gorgeous. Lin Qingshua's eyes widened as she stared at Yun Ruoyan's fiery red dress. The hem of the dress was embroidered with golden silk with phoenix flowers, so gorgeous that it was almost blinding. Her red outer robe had no collar, revealing Yun Ruoyan's slender neck. Because she had been resting regularly and eating well during this period of time, Yun Ruoyan had grown much taller, and her figure had also become much more well-rounded. Although she had just turned 15, she already looked like a 17-year-old girl. Coupled with the fiery red formal attire, she looked more mature and bright than ever before. "That's right, Sister Ruoyan, you look like a completely different person in this dress," Lin Qingchen chimed in. Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxue had arrived early in the morning in Yun Ruoyan's cottage. They were going to be serving as Yun Ruoyan's maids, so even though they didn't usually wear formal clothes, they were dressed rather formally today. "Don't I look good?" Yun Ruoyan stood up and twirled in a circle. The phoenix flowers embroidered with golden silk fluttered in the air, glowing brightly when they came into contact with the sunlight outside the door. "Of course I look good." Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxue hurriedly added in unison, "It just feels different from before." "Different how?" Yun Ruoyan frowned as she looked at herself in the mirror. In fact, even she herself felt that she was different from before. In the past, she had also worn a similar fiery red dress. In both her past and present life, she had worn all sorts of formal attire when attending important events. However, when she looked at herself in the mirror today, she also felt that the woman in the mirror was different from before. As for what exactly was different, she couldn't quite put her finger on it. "Our young miss has grown up." Peony smiled, a look of pride in her eyes. "Our young miss is no longer a little girl. She's a woman now." Peony's words made everyone realize that Yun Ruoyan had unwittingly transformed from a young girl into a woman. Because Yun Ruoyan had been born at noon, the auspicious time for her coming of age was also set at noon. Just after breakfast time, both sides of the road outside the residence of Yun were filled with carriages and guests from all walks of life. The liveliness was no less than that of the Yun matriarch's birthday. "I heard that the eldest daughter of the Yun family will marry the Slaughtering King as his consort soon after she reaches the age of 15. Is that true?" Two guests in the queue whispered to each other. "Yeah, I heard about it too. It's said that the wedding date has been set. It's in 3 days. Why do you think they're in such a hurry?" Another guest in front of them heard the conversation and interrupted, "You probably don't know about this, but they're going to participate in some sort of training at Kongming Academy, and after that they'll be sent to a more dangerous place for training. When will they be back?" "Kongming Academy's training?" The two people behind him immediately became interested. They craned their necks and asked, "What collective training? What trial? How did you know where to go for the trial?" The man looked around nervously. "This is an internal arrangement of Kongming Academy, and most people don't know about it. However, my young miss is also participating in this training, and I only found out about it after overhearing her conversation with my master. My young master is training hard in the manor every day, and my master is collecting treasures to prepare for him. The two of them didn't even have time to attend Miss Yun's coming-of-age ceremony this year, which is why I'm here to give her a gift." "Oh, I recognize you." One of the two guests pointed at the man in front of him. "You must be Master Pei's second butler." This man was Pei Yingxiong's second butler, and the young master he was referring to was none other than Pei Zio. "No wonder you know so much. You're the butler of the Pei family." The two guests exclaimed in realization. "Let me tell you." Seeing that someone had recognized him, the second butler of the Pei Manor grew even more excited. He leaned in front of the two guests and whispered, "You must not know this, but the Slaughtering King is one of the most powerful instructors in Kongming Academy, and Miss Yun is his only official disciple." "What?" The two people behind him widened their eyes and said in shock, "Then how could they still have an engagement? Isn't that the case?" "That's right. A teacher is like a father, and this will be punished by the heavens." The second butler laughed. "My master said the same thing, so even if he wasn't busy, he wouldn't have come here." "Is what you're saying true? Are they really master and disciple?" Quite a few people who had overheard their conversation also came over to ask. It's my turn, it's my turn." The second butler didn't dare to make a big deal out of this, so he quickly changed the topic and went back to line up. However, his words quickly spread through the crowd. Miss Yun was about to be married to the Slaughtering King, but the two of them were still master and disciple. Soon, A wedding would be held in the imperial city and so on and so forth. Because there were so many guests, the main entrance was reserved for the less important ones, while the more important ones would naturally enter through a small door at the side. For example, Yunlan's friends in the court, the princes, and the young ladies of the larger clans who had come to join in the fun. Congratulations, Master Yun, the Yun family has a daughter who has matured. An official of similar rank as Yunlan stepped forward to congratulate him. She can be betrothed once she reaches the age of 15. The official smiled politely at Yunlan. I wonder if Miss Yun is already betrothed? I would like to make a request on behalf of my son. Yunlan smiled sheepishly. Lord Lu, my daughter is already betrothed and the wedding will be held soon. I hope that Lord Lu will attend the wedding. Lord Lu was obviously shocked and said, Your daughter is already married. How come you didn't hear anything about such a big matter? Who is she betrothed to? Because my daughter's schedule has been rather rushed ever since she returned from Kongming Academy, the engagement hasn't been held with much fanfare. Today I'm taking this opportunity to announce the wedding to everyone, Yunlan explained. Actually, Li Mo had been very concerned about the wedding at first, and he had wanted it to be a grand affair. However, Yun Ruoyan didn't want such a grand affair, as she felt that it was already too eye-catching. As a result, Li Mo agreed to her request. Yun Ruoyan's idea was that the wedding wouldn't even be grand, but this idea was immediately rejected by Yunlan and Li Mo. The wedding could be kept small because both Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo were too well known in the capital, and it would be better to keep a low profile. On the other hand, the marriage was an important event that had to be announced to the world. As the auspicious hour approached, all the important guests were seated in the great hall of the Yun Manor, while the rest of the crowd gathered outside. The Yun matriarch sat at the head of the hall, dressed in formal attire. She was the most senior member of the Yun family, and she was the one who would tie Yun Ruoyan's hair. Yunlan sat to the right of the Yun matriarch. As Yun Ruoyan's father, he had to accept Yun Ruoyan's thanks. Li Mo sat to the right of Yunlan. He was the most distinguished guest of the day, and Li Qianhuan sat to his side. The crown prince, Li Qianxiao, and the second prince, Li Xuanhuan, sat opposite him. The auspicious hour has arrived and the ceremony shall begin. As soon as the announcer began, all the chatter in the great hall died down. Supported by the Lin sisters, Yun Ruoyan entered the main hall from the back of the hall. Her dazzling red figure immediately attracted everyone's attention. Li Mo's dark eyes were full of mirth, and he didn't even try to hide his smile as he looked at Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan felt Li Mo's gaze and mischievously raised her chin at him, but her eyes were also full of mirth. The crown prince, Li Qianhuan, craned his neck and stared at Yun Ruoyan, and the second prince, Li Xuanhuan, narrowed his eyes slightly. Every time Yun Ruoyan appeared, she seemed to be different from the last, and every time she appeared, they would be surprised by her transformation. She was like a magical flower, able to bloom into a different, dazzling flower each time. Warriors in position, start the ceremony. As Yun Ruoyan walked into the center of the great hall, the announcer continued, the young kneel and the elderly wash their hands. At this time, two dignified maids, one holding a prayer mat in front of Yun Ruoyan, and the other holding a golden basin, walked up to the Yun matriarch. The Yun matriarch placed her hands into the basin. Kneel to the heavens and pray for the blessings of the gods, the announcer announced. The Lin sisters retreated to the sides, and Yun Ruoyan knelt down on the prayer mat toward the outside of the great hall, bowing 3 times. Kneel to the guests and pray for the blessings of friends and family. Yun Ruoyan bowed to the surrounding guests 3 more times. Kneel to my parents and elders 3 times, and pray for the health of my parents and elders. Finally, Yun Ruoyan kowtowed to her father and the Yun matriarch. Now that the kneeling ceremony is complete, let's begin. Yun Ruoyan straightened her back on the prayer mat, and the Yun matriarch stood up after washing her hands. The Lin sisters helped the Yun matriarch to Yun Ruoyan's side. At this time, another maid came forward, holding a golden jade box in her hands. Lin Qingxian opened the box and handed it to the Yun matriarch. The Yun matriarch reached into the box and took out a golden phoenix hairpin, slowly inserting it into Lin Qingxian's unadorned black hair. The ceremony of ascension is complete, the announcer announced. Chapter 309. Lin Qingxian and Lin Qingxue helped Yun Ruoyan up, and she bowed to the guests once more, thanking them for coming to witness her wedding. The guests all offered their own words of praise. Thank you everyone for coming to witness my daughter's wedding today. Yunlan stood up from his seat. I'd like to take this opportunity to announce to everyone that my daughter has been betrothed to the slaughtering king, and the wedding date is set for 3 days from now. I hope that everyone will honor us with their presence then." Among the guests, only a few had heard the news, so most of them were surprised. First, they were shocked that Xuanhuan was going to marry the slaughtering king, Li Mo, and second, they were shocked that the wedding would be so rushed. However, because of Li Mo's presence, they only dared to whisper. It looks like the Pei Manor's steward was right. There must be some sort of grudge between the slaughtering king and Miss Yun, or they wouldn't have held the wedding so hastily. The two men from before began to whisper again. "I think so too," another man agreed. "Such a reckless act would be punished by the heavens. I'm not going to attend such a wedding." When the people around them heard their discussion, they began to whisper to each other. Even those who didn't ask questions perked up their ears. Xuanhuan, Li Mo, and Yunlan all had spiritual energy, so even though the guests' voices were soft, they could still hear them. The three of them knew what was going on, so they didn't mind it too much. All they wanted was for the wedding to end as quickly as possible and send everyone out of the Yun manor. Unlike other weddings, there weren't any banquets for guests. As a result, Yunlan said, "My daughter's wedding is over, so I won't take up any more of your time. Please return to your rooms and I'll have a toast with all of you in 3 days." Just as the crowd was about to leave, however, a burst of laughter could be heard from outside the main hall. "Official Yun, why didn't you inform me of your daughter's wedding?" Rong Tianling and Rong Yueshan walked in. The feud between the Rong and Yun families had been going on for a long time, and Rong Tianling and Yunlan had been constantly at odds with each other. Thus, when Rong Tianling arrived, the expressions on everyone's faces changed. Some were looking forward to a good show while others looked worried. "I've heard that the slaughtering king's disciple is attending his coming-of-age ceremony today, so even though I didn't receive an invitation, I've come all the way here," Rong Tianling continued, bowing deeply to Li Mo. "The slaughtering king's disciple is coming of age today? Isn't that Miss Yun?" Rong Tianling's words caused the crowd to clamor even louder. "Looks like the rumors are true. Miss Yun and the slaughtering king really do have a master-disciple relationship. So, can a master and disciple get married?" Rong Tianling had come to make things difficult for Yunlan by pretending not to know anything. He couldn't take advantage of Yunlan in court, so he came up with this plan to vent his frustrations. "Imperial Uncle Rong, today is my daughter's wedding day. I hope you won't cause any trouble," Yunlan coldly said to him. Rong Tianling, however, looked confused. "Looking for trouble? What trouble is this uncle looking for? I don't understand what you're saying, Master Yun." Yunlan's expression was as cold as his voice. Yun Ruoyan was supposed to leave as soon as she reached her marriageable age, but she had been blocked by Rong Tianling in the main hall. Li Qianxiao and Li Qianyuan were aware of Yunlan's relationship with Yun Ruoyan, so when Yunlan announced their engagement, the two of them immediately thought of their relationship. However, both of them quickly suppressed this thought. After a few twists and turns, Li Qianxiao's opinion of Yun Ruoyan had finally changed to one of intense love and admiration. But in front of Li Mo, he had no choice but to suppress his feelings. Although Li Qianyuan's feelings for Yun Ruoyan couldn't be considered adoration, he was still a little disappointed to learn that she was going to marry Li Mo. But of course he wouldn't offend the slaughtering king just because he was a little disappointed. As a result, Li Qianxiao and Li Qianhuan couldn't help but feel excited and expectant when Rong Tianling's appearance broke the veil between them. "Let's see how you're going to carry on with the wedding under the watchful eyes of the public." With this mentality, the two of them who had already stood up sat back down. "Ah, slaughtering king, you have to stand up for me." Rong Tianling looked at Li Mo with an aggrieved expression. "I'm here to celebrate your disciple's wedding day, and why is official Yun saying that I'm here to cause trouble? Tell me what's going on here." When the crowd saw that Rong Tianling had the gall to provoke the slaughtering king, they couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Li Mo, however, didn't seem to mind at all. He sat back in his seat, a faint smile on his face. His smile wasn't as cold as it had been before, but strangely warm. In the face of Li Mo's smile, Rong Tianling, who had been feigning ignorance, began to feel a little guilty. "Slaughtering king, aren't you going to say something fair for me?" Rong Tianling continued. Just as he finished speaking, another voice came from outside the door. This time it was a little shrill, as if a man were speaking with his throat pinched. However, the crowd immediately recognized the man's identity, and they parted to make way for him. "The imperial edict has arrived." That shrill voice continued until the person entered the room. Apart from the Yun matriarch and Li Mo, everyone else in the hall knelt down in a hubbub. The eunuch swept his gaze across the crowd, cleared his throat, and began reading the edict in his hands. "Yun Ruoyan, daughter of the Yun family, is dignified, modest, courteous, intelligent, gentle, and virtuous. Now that she has reached the marriageable age, I hereby bestow her hand in marriage to my brother, the slaughtering king Liemo, as the slaughtering king's consort. 3 days from now will be an auspicious day for the wedding." After reading the edict, the eunuch cleared his throat again. "Official Yun, please accept the edict and thank the emperor for his grace." Yunlan received the imperial edict and thanked the emperor 3 times. Everyone followed suit and shouted, "Long live the emperor!" The eunuch continued, "His Majesty has decreed that 3 days is indeed a little too short, so there's no need for a grand wedding. However, I'll be there to witness the wedding, so there's no need to be half-hearted." Yunlan accepts the imperial edict. Yunlan bowed and received the imperial edict. Everyone disperse. Time is of the essence, so let's not delay official Yun's wedding preparations any longer, the eunuch said to the crowd. Only then did the crowd react and nod in agreement. "Imperial Uncle Rong, His Majesty has prepared a table of food and wine in the palace for you to drink together. Please follow us into the palace." Uncle Rong hesitated for a moment, but he had no choice but to leave with his tail between his legs. Since the emperor of a kingdom had issued an imperial edict to bestow marriage, then the so-called marriage was no longer valid. In private there was a saying that a teacher for a day was a father for life, but a teacher wasn't a father. As for the fact that a teacher couldn't marry his disciple, it was only an unwritten rule that had been broken by the emperor's decree. As long as both parties were in love with each other, even a teacher and a disciple could marry. As a result, 3 days later, Li Mo and Yun Ruoyan's wedding was officially held. Although 3 days was short, the wedding was even grander than Yun Ruoyan had expected. Because the emperor was personally presiding over the ceremony, the imperial guards of honor alone took up half a street, making it nearly impossible to keep a low profile. On this day Yun Ruoyan was woken up just as the sun was rising. 5 maidservants circled around her for more than 4 hours before she was properly dressed. The Lin sisters, as well as the other young misses of the large families who had come to congratulate Yun Ruoyan, were all stunned into silence when they saw Yun Ruoyan in her bright red wedding dress. There were no words that could describe the beauty of the woman in front of them. In that moment, many of the noble women even forgot about their jealousy and hatred. All they could see was admiration and yearning for Yun Ruoyan's beauty. Only when the auspicious hour arrived and Yun Ruoyan left, supported by the Lin sisters, did the noble women realize what had happened. "I heard that Miss Yun had a birthmark on her face, but why doesn't she have one? She's so clean and pretty?" One of the noble women who had seen Yun Ruoyan for the first time asked. "She really does have a birthmark on her face. I saw it at last year's flower viewing party, and it was frightening. Why is it gone now? This person doesn't seem like the same person I saw at last year's flower viewing party, but they're clearly the same person. Tell me, how could a person change so much in a year's time?" Another noble woman who had seen Yun Ruoyan asked curiously. "You don't know, do you?" Another noble woman seemed to know a lot. "I heard that the slaughtering king knows how to refine a kind of beauty cream. Miss Yun's birthmark has already been healed, but there's still a little mark left. I'm sure she used some powder to cover it up, or else why would her face be so fair and tender? That's a powder that the slaughtering king specially refined for Miss Yun." "Really?" When the noble women heard this, they all began to see stars. "What kind of beauty cream is that? I want it too. And that powder." By the end of the day Yun Ruoyan felt as though she had become a puppet without the ability to think or move. She was wearing heavy wedding clothes, a heavy phoenix coronet, and a red veil on her head, completely blocking the view in front of her. When she lowered her head, she could only see the tips of her feet, and every step she took required the support of others. It was even more tiring than cultivating for 3 days and 3 nights straight. Liemo could clearly see her fatigue and impatience. As the couple bowed to each other, he leaned close to her ear and whispered, "You've worked hard today, my little consort." Husband and wife bow to each other and enter the bridal chamber. The officiator announced and the guests began to cheer. Amidst their cheers Yun Ruoyan could faintly hear Limo's laughter. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but blush under the red veil. Finally they were going to enter the bridal chamber. Chapter 310. Yun Ruoyan was sent to the bridal chamber, which was in Limo's room. Yun Ruoyan wasn't unfamiliar with the surroundings, and her nervousness was alleviated quite a bit. After the Lin sisters sent Yun Ruoyan to the bridal chamber, they chatted with her for a while before leaving, giggling happily. She sat alone on the bright red wedding bed. She hadn't eaten for an entire day and her stomach began to rumble. Yun Ruoyan endured it for a while longer, but Liemo still hadn't arrived. Smelling the few plates of wedding cakes on the table, she finally couldn't hold back her hunger and lifted the veil. But as soon as the veil was lifted, a woman's voice rang out. "Oh my, the bride can't lift the veil yourself." It was the matron of honor who had nagged at Xuanhuan countless times throughout the day. Ever since Xuanhuan had stepped out of the Yun manor, the matron of honor had been nagging her incessantly. She couldn't do this, couldn't do that, and had to be careful of this and that. As soon as Xuanhuan heard her voice, she reflexively put the veil back on and sat down obediently, returning to her doll form. "That's what a bride should be like." The matron of honor laughed. She was quite satisfied with Xuanhuan's performance that day. She had followed her instructions strictly, and she hadn't made a single mistake. "Where's His Highness? When will he arrive?" Xuanhuan asked. "Looks like the bride can't wait any longer," the matron of honor replied. "But newlyweds should be a little more reserved." Xuanhuan could only acquiesce. She couldn't say that she was too hungry and was waiting for His Highness to arrive. After a while someone finally arrived. It wasn't Li Mo but Li Luo. Li Luo sent the matron of honor away before removing Xuanhuan's veil. When Xuanhuan saw Li Luo, it was as if she had seen her savior. "Sister Li Luo, hurry up and give me something to eat. I haven't eaten all day and I'm so hungry." Xuanhuan was on the verge of tears. In order to look presentable, Peony and Xilan had been putting her on a diet for the past few days. Xuanhuan, who hadn't seen any meat in days, had been starving for an entire day. The feeling in her stomach was indescribable. When Li Luo saw Xuanhuan, she paused for a moment. Even a woman like her couldn't help but be moved by her pitiful expression. But only a girl like Xuanhuan is worthy of His Highness, Li Luo thought to herself. "His Highness knew that you would be hungry, so he asked me to bring you some food." Li Luo took out some of Xuanhuan's favorite snacks from the food box she'd brought with her. "His Highness said that it's best not to eat meat tonight, and that you should eat something light to fill your stomach. He might arrive a little later." "Has His Majesty not left yet?" Xuanhuan looked at the plates of delicacies Li Luo had brought out, as well as a bowl of lotus seed porridge. They were far more adorable than the wedding cakes on the table, and she began to eat them. "His Majesty left early in the morning," Li Luo replied. "But His Highness was stopped by your brother." As it turned out, Yun Maxiao had drunk so much at home that he'd taken advantage of his intoxication to come to the slaughtering king's manor. As soon as Yun Maxiao saw Li Mo, he refused to let go. He kept saying that he was Li Mo's brother-in-law, and that Li Mo had to accompany him properly before entering the manor. The officials who had only come to put on a show of force but didn't dare to act rashly began to drink with Li Mo as well. Li Mo was truly in a good mood today, and he knew how important Yun Maxiao was to Xuanhuan. As such, he really had to accompany his brother-in-law well. As a result, the two of them began to drink, one after another, amidst the clamor of the crowd. By the end, Yun Maxiao was so drunk that he stopped calling him His Highness. Instead, he kept saying, "Li Mo, if you dare mistreat my sister, I'll raise your manor to the ground." As soon as he said this, all of the officials were so frightened that they didn't dare to make any more noise. They all excused themselves, and the slaughtering king's manor was finally a little quieter. Li Luo personally escorted him back, Li Mo instructed. "Yes, Your Highness," Li Luo replied. A few servants escorted Yun Maxiao to his carriage, and Li Luo stood guard by his side while the coachman drove the carriage back to the Yun manor. As the carriage swayed, Yun Maxiao opened his eyes and saw Li Luo. She was hugging her knees as she sat quietly by his side. Yun Maxiao didn't know why, but when he looked at Li Luo's profile, he felt a faint sense of sadness. "Li Luo," Yun Maxiao called out. "Oh?" Li Luo turned to look at Yun Maxiao, only to see that his eyes were sparkling like stars, as if he had countless things to say to her. "My sister is already married, so I have to get married too. Will you marry me?" Yun Maxiao finally said what was on his mind under the influence of the alcohol. But as soon as he said this, a wave of alcohol rushed to his head, and Yun Maxiao's head grew heavy again. "Li Luo, I'm serious. If you agree, you have to tell me tomorrow." As soon as Yun Maxiao finished speaking, he fell back into a deep slumber. Xuanhuan was thirsty. She saw 2 white jade jars on the table, so she picked one up and poured it into a cup. Because of her experience in her past life, she knew that there would be some sort of marriage wine in the bridal chamber. Xuanhuan smelled that the liquid in the cup was fragrant, without a trace of alcohol or the characteristic sweetness of the marriage wine. As a result, Xuanhuan began to drink it without worry. The liquid was refreshing, and while waiting for Li Mo, Xuanhuan drank cup after cup of it. Before she knew it, she'd finished the contents of the 2 jade flasks. Creak. The door opened and Liamo, who had changed into a new set of clothes and taken a shower, walked in with his slightly damp hair. Xuanhuan raised her head to look at Liamo before finishing the last of the liquid in her cup. Liamo, you're finally here. Xuanhuan stood up and walked toward Liamo with a smile. The phoenix coronet on her head and the complicated wedding dress she wore made her look a little clumsy, but it didn't hinder her beauty. Liamo took a step forward and hugged Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan looked up at him and smiled. Her eyes were misty, but she couldn't hide the lust in them. Liamo, why do you smell so good? Xuanhuan leaned against Liamo's chest and sniffed. Why didn't you smell so good before? Yener? Liamo casually picked up the white jade flagon from the table and shook it, only to find that both were empty. Did you drink all of this wine? Xuanhuan smiled and looked up at the jars in Liamo's hands. Yes, Li Luo brought me some snacks, so I drank them when I was thirsty, and then I drank them again when I got bored waiting for you. What's in there? It's delicious, huh? Uncle, this is my newly brewed blissful wine. Not only does it taste better than the average, but I've also improved its effects. Liamo thought back to what Li Qianhan had said to him a few days ago. He remembered that he was too lazy to pay attention to that brat at that time, but he didn't expect that he would silently send this wine into his bridal chamber, and it was 2 bottles at once. Xuanhuan's face slowly turned red. Only now did she realize that there was something wrong with the liquid she had just drunk. Liamo, what's in that jars? Why do I want more after drinking it? Liamo's eyes began to redden. As Xuanhuan spoke, her hands began to roam all over his body, and she couldn't help but stand on her tiptoes to kiss his lips. Liamo's lips were cold, but Xuanhuan's were hot. It's something that won't hurt. Liamo lifted Xuanhuan into his arms. As he carried Xuanhuan, he removed the bits and pieces of her hair and the bright red wedding robe she was wearing. Layer by layer it was very troublesome. Because he was anxious and unwilling to hurt Xuanhuan, Liamo seemed a little flustered. It's so troublesome to dress so neatly. Liamo panted slightly. As soon as he finished speaking, Xuanhuan heard the sound of tearing silk. Liamo had torn the fabric between Xuanhuan's gown and inner robe, revealing a red doo embroidered with a mandarin duck frolicking in the water. Yena. As Liamo murmured, the red veil fluttered down, covering the entire room. Xuanhuan felt as though she had sunk into a pool of warm seawater, a pleasant sensation spreading from the inside out. Wave after wave of pleasure washed over her body, as though there was no end to it, as though she would be drowned in it. Xuanhuan suddenly felt a little afraid that she would drown in this sea of pleasure. As a result, she struggled to open her eyes. As soon as she did, she saw Liamo, who was only a few feet away from her, and she could feel the 2 of them even more clearly. However, Liamo's eyes were closed and he was frowning slightly, so Xuanhuan couldn't tell what he was feeling. Liamo, Xuanhuan called out softly. When Liamo heard her voice, he opened his eyes slightly, and an icy blue light poured out of them without warning. Xuanhuan's face was covered in a layer of icy blue light. In front of Xuanhuan's eyes, Liamo began to transform. His ink-black hair gradually became silvery white, and his eyebrows also became silvery white. His long and narrow eyes became even deeper, and the bridge of his nose was still as tall as before. His thin lips, however, were so red that it seemed as if they were about to drip blood. Liamo called out softly, don't be afraid. Xuanhuan shook her head. This wasn't the first time she had seen Liamo in his true form. However, this time she could clearly feel the entire process of Liamo's transformation. Xuanhuan was naturally shocked, but she was even more shocked by his beauty. How could there be such a beautiful man in this world? Chapter 311. Just like that, Xuanhuan fell into a deep sleep in Liamo's arms. Her brows were furrowed, and her face was as beautiful as a lotus flower. Her lips were slightly swollen, but there was a faint smile on her lips. Liamo planted a kiss on Xuanhuan's forehead, then gently removed his arm from her neck and got off the bed. Liamo put on his outer robe and walked out of the room. He raised his hands and white spiritual power gradually appeared on his hands. Then, the white spiritual power on both of his hands began to change at the same time. One hand was covered with red flames, and the other hand was covered with frost. I've finally broken through. Liamo clenched his fists tightly. He had finally broken through from peak 9th rank to the peak of the Sword Saint realm. Once he became a Sword Saint, he would be able to release his spiritual energy directly from his body in the form of elemental energy, and his elemental energy would be twice as strong as before. Xuanhuan's human furnace was indeed a great boon to his cultivation. Sunimo, Xiuqiu's voice suddenly rang out in Li Mo's mind. Li Mo retracted his hands and returned to the room. He looked at Xuanhuan, who was still lying on the bed. The silver bracelet on her wrist was glowing faintly. Xiuqiu, it seems like you've recovered well? Li Mo asked Xiuqiu through his mental energy. In the past, if Li Mo wanted to talk to Xiuqiu, he would have to use his mental energy to break through the barrier. This time, however, Xiuqiu was able to break through the barrier herself. Mistress, I've been greatly helped by the Amaranthan Sun, Xiuqiu replied. Now that she's become an 8th-rank blade master, she'll be of great help to me as well. Once she reaches the peak of the Sword Saint realm, I'll probably be able to break through the barrier and return to my original form. With Yen'er's talent and my help, she'll be able to reach the peak of the Sword Saint realm in less than 10 years. So Xiuqiu, don't worry. Li Mo, that's not why I'm talking to you, Xiuqiu began. Xiuqiu said, I was just immersed in cultivation when I suddenly felt a huge fluctuation of spiritual energy in Master's body. Although this fluctuation won't harm her, I still find it very strange. Can you tell me why? Xiuqiu was certain that Xuanhuan's spiritual fluctuations were due to Li Mo, but it didn't know the exact reason. As for Li Mo, he felt that there was no longer a need to hide it from Xuanhuan. He wanted to find an opportunity to tell her about it, but he seemed to be lacking a suitable opportunity. Just like tonight, Li Mo had wanted very much to tell Xuanhuan about this matter before he fully possessed her. However, Xuanhuan had mistakenly drunk the marriage wine, and Li Mo didn't have a chance to do so. Xiuqiu, I can tell you the reason, but don't tell your master right now. I want to tell her myself, Li Mo said. Xiuqiu agreed, and Li Mo told Xiuqiu about Xuanhuan's human furnace. I see. Xiuqiu said, I know what you're worried about. Although your intentions weren't pure at first, you're deeply in love with Master now, and Master can feel it. But with Master's personality, it's best if you confess to her as soon as possible to prevent any unforeseen events in the future. Li Mo nodded silently. He was determined to tell Xuanhuan about this matter before they left for the other dimension. Li Mo had originally planned to tell Xuanhuan about this the very next day, but early the next morning he received a notification from the First Elder. The First Elder had informed Li Mo of something that was both surprising and exciting. After all, there weren't many things on the Xianhuan continent that could excite Li Mo. Li Mo told Xuanhuan about this matter, which Xuanhuan had heard from the other students of Kongming Academy about the sudden disappearance of the Beast Taming Hall. 3 years ago, Kongming Academy didn't have 3 halls and 5 colleges, but 4 halls and 5 colleges. One day, however, the elders discovered a new dimension through the all-seeing mirror, and this dimension was filled with a large number of magical beasts. To the Beast Taming Hall, this place was not only a good place for training, but also for treasure hunting. As a result, the executor of the Beast Taming Hall, with the approval of the elders, led his students and a few instructors into that nameless dimension. But at that moment something strange happened. As soon as they entered the dimension, the connection between the dimension and the all-seeing mirror was suddenly severed. Just like that, the executor, instructors, and a large number of students of the Beast Taming Hall disappeared soundlessly into the vast expanse of the dimension. Now that the First Elder had reported that the dimension had reappeared, and Kongming Academy was preparing to send people into it, the First Elder asked Li Mo if he was interested in taking a look. The executor of the Beast Taming Hall is quite close to me, Li Mo replied. In the past 3 years, Master and I have been searching for it with the all-seeing mirror, and now that we've finally found it, I have to go in and take a look. All right, I'll go with you, Xuanhuan replied without hesitation. She had been quite curious when she'd heard her students talk about it, but she hadn't expected that she would have the opportunity to see it for herself. Now that Li Mo was a sword saint, he was confident that he would be able to escape unscathed even from a different dimension, much less from this one. But this time, won't the dimension disappear again? Xuanhuan was still a little worried. They were too hasty last time, Li Mo replied. This time we have to be fully prepared. Because of the urgency of the situation, Li Mo and Xuanhuan hurried back to Kongming Academy on the second day of their wedding, before the holidays had even ended. Before returning, Xuanhuan had her brother Ma Xiao head to Wu City to help the far-sighted king, Li Sheng, eradicate the evildoers by his side. Xuanhuan had promised Li Sheng that she would return in a month, but a month had passed in the blink of an eye. Since Xuanhuan couldn't make the trip herself, she could only entrust the task to her brother. All right, but I have a request, Ma Xiao suddenly said. This surprised Xuanhuan a little. Ever since she was a child, this brother of hers had never made any requests of her. Xuanhuan smiled. Brother, what request do you have? Let me hear it. As a result, Yun Maxiao recounted to Yun Ruoyan how he had proposed to Li Luo in the carriage that night. Ever since that night, Li Luo had been avoiding him, so Yun Maxiao's request was for Li Luo to accompany him. This wasn't a difficult task for Yun Ruoyan. After all, Li Luo had always obeyed Li Mo's orders without hesitation. When she returned to Wu City, she informed Li Mo of the matter, and he immediately issued an order to Li Luo. However, Li Luo had a request. She wanted Su Nan to go with her. Otherwise, she wouldn't go even if she disobeyed orders. Yun Ruoyan had no choice but to have Li Mo agree. After all, it was difficult for an outsider to interfere in a relationship between a man and a woman, and Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but worry for her brother. After making all the necessary arrangements, Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo flew toward the Kongming Mountains. Li Mo, slow down. Wait for me. Yun Ruoyan followed closely behind Li Mo. Although she'd been practicing flying on her sword all this time, her sense of balance was far from perfect despite her impeccable talent. Li Mo had said that, given her cultivation speed, she would be able to fly on her sword in less than 10 days. But in the blink of an eye, almost a month had passed, and she was still only able to stand unsteadily on the Scarlet Eye sword. If Li Mo were by her side she would be fine, but if he were even a little further away from her, Yun Ruoyan would tremble all over. You can't be too slow. Li Mo purposely distanced himself from Yun Ruoyan. The slower you go, the harder it is to maintain balance. That's why there's a saying that beginners have to ride fast. It's not a question of whether I'm a beginner or a veteran, Yun Ruoyan replied bitterly. The problem is that I'm afraid of heights. Li Mo's face darkened. He had flown with Yun Ruoyan so many times that he didn't know that she was afraid of heights. Forget it, come on up. Li Mo was finally defeated by Yun Ruoyan. He reached out to Yun Ruoyan, took her hand and pulled her into his embrace. As a result, the two of them immediately sped up, and by noon, they arrived at Kongming Academy. The two of them flew directly to the top floor of the southern tower, where the first elder was waiting for them. Take a look. The three of them did not exchange any pleasantries. The great elder immediately opened the all-seeing mirror for the two of them to see. In the all-seeing mirror, Yun Ruoyan could only see a lush, green landscape, with blue skies and white clouds, lush trees and birds flying by. It was as if she were in a paradise. First elder, is this the dimension that disappeared? Yun Ruoyan asked curiously. Yes, it's here, the first elder confirmed. The first elder waved a hand at the all-seeing mirror, and the image of a valley appeared. There were many magical beasts in the valley, some of which Yun Ruoyan recognized, while others she didn't. The sheer number of beasts left Yun Ruoyan speechless. Master, have you found any traces of Master Qin in the others? Li Mo asked the first elder. The first elder shook his head. No, but this dimension is very large and there are many places that I haven't explored yet. There are also some places that seem to be protected by a barrier that even the all-seeing mirror can't penetrate. As such, I'll have to send someone in personally to investigate. First elder, I'll go with Li Mo, Yun Ruoyan replied. When do you plan to leave, and what preparations do I need to make before leaving? Chapter 3:12. She was worried that the space would suddenly disappear if she entered just like that. As a result, Yun Ruoyan asked the first elder and Li Mo what preparations they needed to make before entering the nameless dimension. The first elder said that he was currently attempting to make a higher-grade teleportation scroll, and that he was almost done with it. Such a scroll would allow the two of them to return to the nameless dimension in an instant in case of an emergency. However, making such a scroll was extremely taxing on one's spiritual energy and required the support of a formation. As a result, apart from the first elder, Yun Ruoyan also needed a sword saint to assist him. Of the remaining 4 elders, 2 were in seclusion, and 1 had yet to return from his travels. At the moment, only the second elder was at Kongming Academy. Just as the first elder was about to invite him, Li Mo spoke up. Master, let me help you. Both the first elder and Yun Ruoyan looked toward Li Mo, who raised his hands in front of them. One of his arms was glowing with a red flame, while the other was glowing with a blue ice crystal. Li Mo, you've broken through to the Sword Saint realm? The first elder asked excitedly. Yun Ruoyan's face lit up. She knew that Li Mo's cultivation had been stuck at 9th rank for a long time, and she was naturally delighted that he had managed to break through. Li Mo, when did you break through? I think you hadn't even broken through when you were dealing with Madame Qin at the tea house, right? Yun Ruoyan blurted out excitedly. I made the breakthrough last night, Li Mo said, not hiding anything. I broke through last night. When did you break through last night? Xuanhuan was confused. They had spent the entire night together, so why didn't she know when Liu had broken through? Could it be that he had broken through? Xuanhuan's eyes widened as she stared at Liu, who smiled and nodded. After Xuanhuan recovered from her shock, she immediately blushed, glanced at the first elder and hurriedly changed the topic. How long will it take to make this teleportation scroll? Liu hadn't told the first elder that Xuanhuan was a furnace, but the first elder had heard Empress Xuetong mention it. As a result, the first elder knew what was going on as soon as he heard their conversation. However, he pretended not to know anything and replied to Xuanhuan as naturally as possible. Originally, it would only take half a day, but just in case, I'm preparing to refine 4 spatial scrolls for you to use, so I'll need a full day. As a result, Liu followed the first elder to his training room, where the two of them as peak blade masters began to craft high-grade spatial scrolls. Because of the great elder's many years of research, the refining method summarized was not difficult to refine, but the requirements for spiritual power were very high. Xuanhuan stood to the side, watching as the two of them stood on opposite ends of a stone platform, their hands pushing against the scrolls on the platform and infusing spiritual energy into them. With the continuous infusion of a large amount of spiritual power, the scroll on the stone platform slowly began to have spiritual power, and the patterns on it gradually began to glow with spiritual power. By the time the sky was completely dark, the 2 spatial scrolls were finally completed. After a short rest, Liu and the first elder began to craft the other 2 spatial scrolls. As a 9th-rank blade master, one would be able to slowly enter a state of inertia, so Liu and the first elder didn't need food. However, Xuanhuan didn't. When the sky darkened, she left the southern tower in search of food. Because it was the holidays, there weren't many students at Kongming Academy, and the cafeteria wasn't open. Xuanhuan saw that there was no one in the cafeteria, and just as she was worrying about how to fill her stomach, she saw a figure walking toward her. As the figure drew closer, Xuanhuan recognized who it was. Xuanfeng, what are you doing here? Xuanhuan asked in surprise. Wasn't he supposed to be at the Lin Manor with Xuanliner? I didn't have much to do at the Lin Manor, so I came back to cultivate. It's quiet here and there's plenty of spiritual energy, Xuanfeng replied coolly. In the darkness of the night, Xuanhuan couldn't see Xuanfeng's face clearly, but she felt that he seemed much thinner and taller than when she'd first met him. The last time Xuanhuan had seen Xuanfeng was not long after her engagement to Liu. At that time, Kongming Academy had just started its holidays, and it had been almost a month since then. That day she had gone to the Lin Manor early in the morning to play. Lin Qingchen had told her that Lin Qingxue was practicing archery with Xuanfeng in the pavilion. Remembering that she had promised Lin Qingxue that she would give her a good bow once she was done with archery, Xuanhuan dragged Lin Qingchen along. As soon as the two of them entered the pavilion, they saw Xuanfeng holding Lin Qingxue in his arms, his large hand holding her small hand. The two of them were drawing a bow together. Lin Qingxue's round face was bright red, and she was smiling sweetly. Xuanfeng was expressionless, but his body was pressed tightly against Lin Qingxue's. In the past, Xuanfeng would often correct Lin Qingxue's shooting posture in this manner, but he had only done so in the past. At that time, Lin Qingchen's expression had changed. She had wanted to step forward, but Xuanhuan had stopped her. After that, Lin Qingchen's face remained cold the entire time, but Xuanfeng acted as if nothing had happened. Only Lin Qingxue was foolishly immersed in her happiness. From that day onwards, Xuanhuan saw Xuanfeng twice more. Each time he was with Lin Qingxue, and the two of them were indeed much closer than before. Lin Qingchen was quite worried about this, and Xuanhuan comforted her that it was a good thing for Lin Qingxue to be with someone she liked, and that Xuanfeng was someone worth trusting. However, Lin Qingchen said that Xuanfeng didn't like Lin Qingxue at all, which was why she was worried. Xuanhuan had long known that Lin Qingxue liked Xuanfeng, but she couldn't tell whether or not Xuanfeng actually liked Lin Qingxue. However, based on her understanding of Xuanfeng, if he didn't like Lin Qingxue, he wouldn't be so intimate with her. That was how she comforted Lin Qingchen. However, after hearing her words, Lin Qingchen hesitantly asked her a question. Sister Ruoyan, I've always felt that Brother Zhua has someone he likes, but that person isn't Qingxue. Sister Ruoyan, do you feel that way? Lin Qingchen asked. Xuanhuan paused. She really hadn't felt that Xuanfeng had been so serious ever since she'd met him. Most of the time, Xuanhuan didn't know what he was thinking. Strangely, Xuanhuan didn't try to guess Xuanfeng's interests or thoughts. She simply felt that he was a friend worth befriending. If he liked someone, who else could it be if it's not Xianxia? Yun Ruoyan frowned. Lin Qingchen looked at Yun Ruoyan, frowning as well. After a long while she finally replied, I don't know either. On the other hand, Yun Ruoyan took this matter to heart. When she had the chance, she had even asked Zhuolin if Zhuo Yifeng had liked any girls before they'd gotten to know each other. Zhuolin said that he had, but she hadn't seen her brother like anyone. As a result, Yun Ruoyan had been looking for an opportunity to have a good chat with Zhuo Yifeng. As Lin Qingshua's sister, Yun Ruoyan felt that it was her duty to clarify things for Lin Qingxua. And today was clearly a good opportunity for her to do so. Zhuo Yifeng, I have something I want to talk to you about, Yun Ruoyan said. Let's find a place to talk. As Yun Ruoyan spoke, her stomach began to rumble, and Yun Ruoyan subconsciously placed her hand on it, rubbing it comfortingly. Zhuo Yifeng's lips curled up involuntarily as he looked at her. Because of the misty darkness of the night, his smile grew larger and larger. Are you hungry? Zhuo Yifeng smiled. Yes, I'm starving. The slaughtering king isn't even giving you a proper meal? He's busy right now. Come with me, I'll fill your stomach first, Zhuo Yifeng said. Yun Ruoyan followed Zhuo Yifeng toward the western cliffs. As they walked, Zhuo Yifeng asked Yun Ruoyan why she and Liamo had come to the Kongming Mountains at this time. Zhuo Yifeng knew that the two of them were newlyweds, so he was quite surprised to see Yun Ruoyan here. Yun Ruoyan didn't think that Zhuo Yifeng was an outsider, and the appearance of an alternate dimension wasn't much of a secret, so she told him about it. The two of them chatted all the way to the cliffs. Kongming Academy was located on high ground, and even though it was already spring, there was still a layer of snow on the shady parts of the campus. Zhuo Yifeng dug out a small magical rabbit that he had hunted earlier from the pile of snow behind a large boulder. After roasting the rabbit until it was tender, he quickly began to clean it up. Zhuo Yifeng, I have a very important question for you. You have to answer me honestly, Zhuo Yifeng didn't pause in the slightest. Don't ask me questions now. Ask me when I'm done roasting the rabbit in my hands. Only when you put your heart into it will it taste good. Zhuo Yifeng glanced at Yun Ruoyan, and his beast-like eyes lit up. He quickly lowered his head and returned his attention to the rabbit in his hands. Yun Ruoyan didn't expect Zhuo Yifeng to interrupt her. As far as she could remember, Zhuo Yifeng had never interrupted her in the middle of a conversation. In her memory, Zhuo Yifeng would always quietly listen to her until she finished speaking, either nodding in agreement or quietly voicing his thoughts. The aroma of the roasted rabbit began to spread, but Yun Ruoyan was so lost in her thoughts that she didn't notice it until Zhuo Yifeng called out to her. All right, here. Zhuo Yifeng handed one of the rabbit's legs to Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan took a deep breath and took a big bite. Only when half of the rabbit was in her stomach did Zhuo Yifeng ask, What question did you want to ask me? Chapter 313. Yun Ruoyan looked at Zhuo Yifeng. He seemed different from before, but upon closer inspection, apart from being taller and thinner, there didn't seem to be any other obvious changes. Do you know that Qingxua likes you? Yun Ruoyan asked. Yes, Zhuo Yifeng replied as he added more wood to the dying fire. Then do you like her? Yun Ruoyan asked. Yes, Zhuo Yifeng answered without hesitation. Oh. When Yun Ruoyan heard Zhuo Yifeng's reply, she couldn't help but sigh in relief, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. That's good then. Zhuo Yifeng continued, My sister and I aren't related at all, and it's only thanks to the Lin family that we've been together. Qingxua and Qingshan treat us like family, and I'll treat them like family, like a sister. Chem? Yun Ruoyan exhaled. That's not what I meant by like. I meant the kind of liking a man feels for a woman. How could you not understand? I really don't understand. Zhuo Yifeng prodded at the burning coals, the light from the fire illuminating his beast-like eyes, obscuring his true emotions. Yun Ruoyan began to panic. Zhuo Yifeng, let me tell you, Qingxua is sincere toward you and we can all see that. If you like her, you have to treat her well, and if you don't, you have to stay away from her. Yun Ruoyan stared at Zhuo Yifeng, waiting for his reply. Only after a long while did Zhuo Yifeng finally speak up. I can't promise you that. Why? Yun Ruoyan asked. Because Qingxua confessed to me and I rejected her. She said that as long as I didn't hate her, she wouldn't give up, and that whether or not I liked her, I'd give her a chance, Zhuo Yifeng replied coolly. She said that she'd use her sincerity to move me. What? Yun Ruoyan was both shocked and helpless. She actually confessed to you and even said such a thing. What a silly girl. She is indeed a silly girl. Zhuo Yifeng's lips curled up in a smile, and when Yun Ruoyan saw his smile, she felt strangely uncomfortable. Feng, no matter what, you can't hurt Qingxue. She's my sister, and if you dare hurt her, I won't go easy on you. That's not something I can guarantee. Feng looked toward Yun Ruoyan, his tone serious. The reason I left the Lin family so early to come to the academy was because I wanted to distance myself from Qingxue and calm her down. But in a few days Qingxue will come back again. What do you think I should do? Feng met Yun Ruoyan's gaze, a faint smile in his beastly eyes. Yun Ruoyan stood up with a whoosh. I don't care. If you hurt Qingxue, I won't go easy on you. She turned to leave, but Feng spoke up from behind her. Why don't I go with you to the alternate dimension? Qingxue hasn't seen me for a long time, and perhaps she'll calm down. Yun Ruoyan paused and turned back to look at Feng. I can't make this decision on my own. I'll have to get the first elder's approval. Wait for my news. After Yun Ruoyan left, Feng sat back down by the fire. A black-clothed figure appeared soundlessly by his side. Feng took a flask of wine from his waist and handed it to the black-clothed figure. You gave my dish to someone else. The black-clothed figure took the flask and took a sip. Feng used the stick in his hand to pull at the fire with all his might. With a crack, the stick in his hand broke into 2 pieces. He threw the broken piece into the fire with all his might. Master. Feng turned his head to look at the black-clothed man and said, if there is something that you love very much, but not only are you unable to obtain it, you also have to watch helplessly as it is taken by your enemy. What would you do? The black-clothed figure hesitated for a long time before replying. If it's just something, of course I'd try my best to get it back. But if it's a person and her heart isn't with you, what's the point of taking her away? Feng's bright eyes dimmed as he listened to the black-clothed figure's words. I'm useless, master, I'm really useless. Feng hung his head, his voice sad. I fell in love with a woman from the first time I saw her, but I never dared to show even a trace of my feelings in front of her. She's so beautiful, so noble, and in front of her, I'm as insignificant as dust. Master, I feel like a pitiful worm right now. The black-clothed figure patted Feng's shoulder and handed him the flask of wine. Feng took it and took a large gulp. The black-clothed figure sighed. In front of love, everyone is insignificant. Just like that girl called Lin Qingyu you were talking about, isn't she the same in front of you? If the child is yours, it'll always be yours. If it's not, no matter how much you worry about it, it'll be useless. Feng smiled bitterly and drank half of the flask of wine in one go. His head felt a little dizzy and he clutched his head and laughed bitterly. Master, tell me what's mine. What's not mine? I wanted revenge, but I found that my enemy was so strong that I couldn't catch up to him even if I spent the rest of my life. The woman I loved married my enemy before I even had the courage to confess my feelings for her. Master, tell me what's mine in this world and what's not. I can't accept this, I can't. As Feng spoke, his head gradually leaned against the black-clothed figure's shoulder, and he fell into a deep sleep. The black-clothed figure sighed, took the flask of wine from Feng's hand, and drank the last mouthful. By the time Yun Ruoyan returned to the southern tower, Liemo and the first elder were still forging spatial scrolls, and it was likely that the day after they were done the sun would rise. When Liemo saw Yun Ruoyan sitting by the side in a daze, he thought that she was tired and told her to get some rest. Yun Ruoyan decided that it wouldn't be too late to tell them about Feng the next day. As soon as Yun Ruoyan left, a black figure entered the southern tower. Both the first elder and Liemo stopped their cultivation at the same time and looked at the black-clothed figure. The man in black took off the hood that covered his face, revealing a resolute face with a scar on it. Xuanhuan. Liemo looked at the man. Did something happen to mother for you to come here at this hour? Everything's fine with the Empress, Xuanhuan replied. I'm here to ask for a favor on behalf of my son, Feng. The next day when Yun Ruoyan woke up, Liemo and the first elder had already finished forging the 4 spatial scrolls. Liemo, there's something I need to tell you. Yun Ruoyan wrung out a clean, wet towel and handed it to Liemo. Liemo took the towel and began to wash his face. I saw Feng at the academy yesterday. Yun Ruoyan told Liemo everything that had happened between Feng and Lin Qingxue. I'd like Feng to enter the nameless dimension with us. Otherwise, I'd be worried if I didn't stay here to look after Qingxue. Sure, let's bring him along. Liemo agreed readily. In any case, we've already forged 4 spatial scrolls, so there's more than enough to go around. At noon, Liemo, Yun Ruoyan, and Feng stood in front of the all-seeing mirror. I'm going to activate the all-seeing mirror's teleportation function. After you enter, you might appear in midair, so make sure to land safely on your swords, the first elder reminded them. The all-seeing mirror had a teleportation function, but the number of people it could teleport was limited. Moreover, because there was no teleportation array on the ground, those who were teleported would appear in midair rather than on the ground. As a result, if a large number of students were to be teleported from the academy to the trial, they would still use a teleportation array that had been set up in advance. Xuanhuan felt a blinding white light envelop her and she closed her eyes. Then a gust of wind suddenly blew, causing her hair and clothes to flutter, and her entire body became weightless. In the process of falling, Xuanhuan felt two hands simultaneously grab her left and right hands, slowing her descent. The white light disappeared, and when Xuanhuan opened her eyes, she found herself surrounded by misty white clouds. "Liamo!" Xuanhuan called out loudly, but her voice was blown back into her mouth by the strong wind. She turned her head with great difficulty, only to see Liamo and Xuanfeng holding onto her left and right. The moment the three of them passed through the clouds, the fog in front of Xuanhuan cleared, revealing a vast expanse of emerald green below. Liamo and Xuanfeng both summoned green swords beneath their feet, and the three of them stopped their descent. Liamo wrapped his arm around Xuanhuan's waist, and Xuanfeng let go, allowing Xuanhuan to fall into Liamo's embrace. "I didn't expect this place to be even more beautiful than the all-seeing mirror." Xuanhuan looked down from Liamo's arms. The verdant canopy of the trees seemed to connect the heavens and the earth. The sky was clear and the clouds were as thin as silk. It was truly a paradise. "The spiritual energy here is also much denser than on the Xuanhuan continent," Liamo's voice rang out by Xuanhuan's ear. Upon hearing Liamo's words, Xuanfeng and Xuanhuan both activated a spiritual gathering technique. Indeed, the spiritual energy here seemed to be twice as dense as on the Xuanhuan continent. "Let's find a place to settle down first," Xuanfeng said before flying down on his sword. Liamo and Xuanhuan followed closely behind. The three of them flew along the treetops for about 15 minutes before Xuanhuan finally saw a glistening spot not far from where they were. "There's a lake over there. Let's head over," Liamo said, and the three of them began flying toward the lake. However, just as the three of them were flying, a sudden change occurred. The clear blue sky suddenly darkened, and a gust of wind blew countless leaves from the canopy, sending them flying toward Xuanhuan's group like daggers. Chapter 3:14. Countless green leaves rained down on the three of them like a rain of daggers, but the three of them each had a spiritual barrier protecting them from the onslaught as they flew toward the lake. Liamo was a peak blade master, and his barrier was even more resilient than Xuanhuan's and Xuanfeng's. Most of the green leaves bounced off it. As for Xuanhuan and Xuanfeng, their spiritual barrier began to crack under the relentless assault of the green leaves. Seeing this, Liamo hurriedly hid Xuanhuan within his robes. Xuanfeng catch. Xuanhuan reached out from Liamo's robes and tossed her dark steel dagger to Xuanfeng. Just then a green leaf shot over and scratched Xuanhuan's outstretched hand, leaving a bloody gash on it. Xuanfeng took the dagger from Liamo. As he struck the green leaves that were attacking him, he urged the sword under his feet with all his might and followed Liamo toward the lake. The three of them finally left the attack range of the green leaves and landed on the surface of the lake. The three of them landed by the lake, and Xuanhuan emerged from Liamo's robes. "Is your hand all right?" Xuanfeng walked up and handed the dagger back to Xuanhuan. "Oh, it's nothing. Just a small scratch." As Xuanhuan took the dagger back, she glanced at the back of her hand. There was a cut on it and a trickle of blood was dripping down. "You're bleeding." Xuanfeng frowned as he took out some gauze from his storage pouch to bandage Xuanhuan's wound. Suddenly, Liamo walked over and took out a handkerchief he always carried with him. "Give me your hand." Liamo's expression didn't look too good. Xuanhuan obediently stretched out her hand in front of him and allowed him to bandage her wound. "Why would these green leaves suddenly attack us?" Xuanhuan looked at Liamo curiously. Her movements were nimble, and she was protected by her own barrier of spiritual energy. She hadn't expected the green leaves to cut the back of her hand, and it was clear how powerful they were. Could it be that someone's controlling it from behind the scenes? Xuanfeng asked. Both he and Xuanhuan couldn't help looking around. It could also be a unique phenomenon of this space. Different dimensions tend to have different environments, so we have to be careful. As an instructor who often led his students into the trial grounds, Liamo was quite familiar with alternate dimensions. Xuanfeng and Xuanhuan had entered the trial grounds twice before, and this was only their third time. The first time was in a desert oasis, and the second time was in a forest of giant trees. The environments of the two trial grounds were very different. This time, the three of them arrived at a beautiful fairyland-like scenery. However, behind this beautiful scenery, there were countless dangers waiting for them. After Liemo finished bandaging Yunruoyan's wounds, the three of them walked along the lakeshore for about 15 minutes before discovering that the lake extended into a valley. In the valley, the three of them could see a small cottage by the lakeshore. The three of them were overjoyed to see the cottage. Apart from the beast-taming students who had been here 3 years ago, there couldn't be anyone else in such a remote place. The three of them quickened their steps toward the cottage, but it was only when they arrived that they realized that it was an abandoned house. There were even some household utensils in the cottage, indicating that someone had lived here for a long time. However, all the utensils were covered in a thick layer of dust, indicating that the owner had been gone for a long time. "A woman used to live here," Liemo said as he brushed away the dust on the table. "How did you know? What did you discover?" Yunruoyan looked at him. Liemo pointed to a wooden comb by her hand. "This is a comb that women use to comb their hair." Yunruoyan walked over and saw that it was indeed a comb, with a peach blossom carved on it. "A husband and wife lived here, right?" Zhuifeng asked from the corner of the room. Yunruoyan and Liemo looked at him. Zhuifeng pointed to a wooden cradle by the corner of the room. "This is an infant's cradle, and it's only half finished." "Were there any married couples among the students who came with you?" Yunruoyan asked Liemo. Liemo shook his head. "No, but there were male and female students. It's not impossible that they got married later on. But where did they go now?" Yunruoyan looked at the half-finished cradle. Zhuifeng and Liemo shook their heads, unable to answer that question. "The furnishings here are clean and tidy, and the cradle is only half-finished. Although they left in a hurry, they probably left of their own volition," Zhuifeng continued. "Not necessarily," Liemo replied. "It's possible that they were forced to leave before they even had a chance to enter the house. The three of them didn't find anything of value in the house, so they walked out. Instead of lingering by the lake, they headed into the nearby forest to investigate the situation. Perhaps it was due to the abundance of spiritual energy here, but the vegetation here was extremely lush and verdant, even taller and more luxuriant than on the Xuanhuan continent. However, the three of them had experienced the giant forest in the past, so they were no longer surprised by the tall trees in front of them. In the forest, the three of them walked for about the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the forest in front of them. Dozens of rabbits, pheasants, and a few other small animals that Yunruoyan couldn't name came running over. "Mistress, there's a magical beast up ahead," Xiaoqiu reported in Yunruoyan's mind. Yunruoyan nodded. She had also sensed the aura of magical beasts, and a large number of them at that. However, based on their auras, these beasts should be low-rank beasts that weren't very lethal. The three of them didn't stop, continuing in their original direction. Not long after, an even louder commotion could be heard from up ahead. The first thing Yunruoyan saw were 7 or 8 red dog-like beasts sprinting toward them from the forest ahead. "Hounds," Zhuifeng remarked. As he spoke, he unslung his bow from his back, knocked an arrow and fired at the hounds in front of them. The powerful arrow pierced through the body of the fierce mane hound after killing it, and landed on the head of the fierce mane hound behind it. That hound let out a pained howl before collapsing to the ground. The hounds that had been running were so startled by this sudden attack that they stopped in their tracks. However, more and more hounds began to run up from behind, forcing those that had stopped in front of them to charge toward Yunruoyan's group once more. "What's going on? Is it a stampede of beasts?" The three of them leaped up a large tree and watched in shock as nearly 1,000 hounds ran past them. Although the hounds weren't high-ranked beasts, it was still rare to see such a large number of them. Normally, there would only be thousands of magical beasts in a beast tide, and they were all made up of different magical beasts. But now there were thousands of fierce-maned hounds. "Surely they can't be the only beasts here, can they?" Yunruoyan asked. That day in the all-seeing mirror, there were many different species of beasts. "This place is indeed different," Liemo said. "Let's continue forward." By this time, nearly 1,000 hounds had passed by them. Holding Yunruoyan's hand, Liemo jumped down from the tree, and the three of them continued forward. What the three of them didn't expect was that another batch of red-eyed wolves, if not 1,000, then a few hundred. These red-eyed wolves were of a higher level than the fierce-maned hounds. Some of the red-eyed werewolves weren't as observant as the hull-maned hounds. When the main group left, nearly 30 red-eyed werewolves surrounded the tree that the three of them were standing on. Evidently, they were treating the three of them as prey. The red-eyed wolves weren't high-rank beasts, but Xiao had said that their beast cores contained fire-attuned spiritual energy, and that they could be refined into a fiery pill that could speed up one's cultivation. As a result, Xuanhuan decided to kill a few of them. It's been a long time since I've hunted beasts, so let's get some practice today. Xuanhuan bade farewell to Liemo and Zhuifeng before jumping down from the tree, dagger in hand. As soon as the 30 red-eyed wolves saw Xuanhuan jump down from the tree, they pounced on her without hesitation, and Xuanhuan's spiritual barrier immediately began to seep out of her body. Although the red-eyed wolves had sharp claws and sharp fangs, their cultivation was too low, and they couldn't break through Xuanhuan's 8th-rank Blademaster's barrier. Relying on the barrier's protection, Xuanhuan didn't need to defend herself at all. She raised the dagger in her hand and stabbed at the red-eyed wolves by her side, one at a time, each stab aimed at a vital point. In a short while she had killed more than 10 red-eyed wolves. Only then did the remaining wolves realize that these beasts weren't food for them to hunt, but hard bones that they couldn't even chew on. The remaining dozen or so demon wolves gave up on attacking, turned around and chased after the large group. Xuanhuan was enjoying her hunt to her heart's content. Because of the spiritual barrier's protection, there wasn't a single trace of blood on her body. With Liemo and Zhuifeng's help, the red-eyed wolves' beast cores were quickly extracted. By this time, the sky had already darkened, and the 3 of them were preparing to return to the lakeside to rest for the night. Just as they were about to leave, an even louder sound came from behind them. A whoa! The beast's roars came from ahead like a flash flood. "Mistress, there's a pack of high-rank beasts up ahead," Xiao reported. Xuanhuan, Liemo, and Zhuifeng glanced at each other, the same question in their minds. What's going on? Could it be that this was a magical beast taming ground? Is there no end to this? Chapter 315. Before the 3 of them had much time to react, another group of beasts appeared in the forest in front of them. These beasts were large and covered in tiger pelts, and there was a large Wang character on their heads. They looked like giant tigers, but they had 2 fangs protruding from their mouths. These were the saber-toothed tigers that Xuanhuan had slain before. The saber-toothed tigers were high-rank beasts, and their attacks were many times stronger than those of the fiery-maned hounds and red-eyed wolves. None of the 3 dared to take them lightly, and they all leapt up into the trees. There were more than 200 saber-toothed tigers in this group, and each one of them was enormous in size. As a result, even though the trees in the 3 forests were tall, many of the trees were still broken by their fangs. As Zhuifeng looked at the fangs of the saber-toothed tigers, an idea popped up in his mind. He only had less than 10 tiger canine arrowheads left in his quiver. Although they could be recycled and reused, he had still expended quite a few of them in battle. Of the 30 that Xuanhuan had gifted him, there were now only 10 left. Zhuifeng wouldn't bear to use these 10 arrowheads unless absolutely necessary, but the saber-toothed tiger's fangs were extremely valuable, and they were almost priceless in the capital. He hadn't expected them to be everywhere in the forest, and if he didn't make a move now, he wouldn't have such a good opportunity in the future. Zhuifeng thought excitedly, "This time I have to get 8 or 10 fangs and forge them into a few hundred arrowheads." Although that was what Zhuifeng was thinking, he wasn't in a hurry to act rashly. Given the 3 of them's strength, even 10 such high-rank beasts wouldn't be a problem. But now there were nearly 200 of them. If these 200 saber-toothed tigers were to be provoked, it would be no laughing matter. Thus Zhuifeng quietly waited. When the 200 magical beasts were almost gone, Zhuifeng pulled out an arrow with a tiger-tooth arrowhead from the quiver on his back. He aimed it at one of the saber-toothed tigers and shot it, piercing its head with a single strike. The saber-toothed tiger howled. Although it didn't die, it collapsed to the ground, unable to get up. Zhuifeng was about to shoot a second tiger when Liemo stopped him. "What's wrong?" High-rank beasts like saber-toothed tigers are extremely loyal to their companions. Under normal circumstances, you'll only hunt them when they're alone, Liemo explained. If you hunt them like this, they'll take revenge. Although Zhuifeng was good at hunting, he didn't know much about high-level magical beasts. This was the first time he heard of such a thing. Indeed, as soon as Liemo finished speaking, the saber-toothed tigers behind him stopped in their tracks and surrounded the injured tiger. One of the larger saber-toothed tigers raised its huge head, its 2 golden tiger eyes looking at the tree that everyone was hiding in. Zhuifeng once again knocked an arrow and aimed it at the saber-toothed tiger. Liemo reached out and pressed down on the arrow. Then, Liemo looked at the tiger's golden eyes and stretched out his hand to draw a complicated pattern in its direction that Xuanhuan couldn't understand. The diagram emitted a scarlet glow of spiritual energy as it floated in midair. When the saber-toothed tiger saw the scarlet diagram, its eyes narrowed, and it lowered its huge head in Limo's direction. Then, it led the other saber-toothed tigers away, leaving the injured one behind. Only when the large group of saber-toothed tigers had left did the three of them jump down from the tree and stand in front of the injured tiger. "Limo, what did you do? Why did they suddenly leave?" Xuanhuan asked curiously. "I drew a beastmaster contract formation," Limo explained. "Then I infused the formation with spiritual energy from a sword saint, and the saber-toothed tigers left in fear." If Limo hadn't mentioned it, Xuanhuan would have almost forgotten that he was a beastmaster as well. The first time Xuanhuan had seen Limo form a contract with a beast was when he had tamed the soul-stealing bird, Mo, in the forest of giant trees. This was the second time she had seen Limo display his abilities as a beastmaster. "If only Mo had come along," Xuanhuan murmured. Mo's demonic voice was particularly effective against magical beasts. However, ever since Mo had been brought out of the forest by the two of them, she hadn't seen it at all. It was almost as if it had been released into the wild. Limo's cultivation was high, and he usually didn't need its help. As a result, he had almost completely forgotten about it. Given Mo's current cultivation, it won't be easy for him to deal with a high-level beast like the saber-toothed tiger, Limo said. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and a green sword aura appeared in it. The green sword aura grew another half a foot in his hand, and Limo stabbed the saber-toothed tiger's heart, ending its pain. Zhuifeng's sword also appeared in his hand, and he used it to remove the two tiger canine arrowheads and place them in his storage pouch. After doing all this, the three of them began to walk back. The path back had been trampled by a horde of magical beasts, and the trees were toppled over. Once a horde of magical beasts formed, their destructive power couldn't be underestimated. "Where do you think these beasts came from and where are they headed?" Zhuifeng asked as they hurried along. Xuanhuan didn't know and she looked toward Limo, waiting for his answer. "I don't know. We'll come back tomorrow." The three of them rested for the night. Xuanhuan and Zhuifeng brought enough water for them to drink, and then the three of them set off once more into the forest. Today they didn't encounter any beasts, but they did encounter quite a few beasts of various sizes. Given their cultivation, as long as the beasts weren't sage-ranked, they wouldn't be a problem. Limo was rather worried. If the beastmasters had encountered such a beast tied 3 years ago, there would have been many casualties. "Someone's here." Just as the three of them were walking, Limo suddenly sensed someone's aura approaching, and the three of them stopped. Xuanhuan and Zhuifeng also sensed the aura of more than one person. Suddenly an arrow flew toward Limo's head. Limo reached out and caught the arrow in his hand. The arrowhead was made of dark steel, and it turned out to be a specialized arrow from the Beastmaster Academy. Before Limo could speak, another volley of arrows flew toward them. Limo didn't move, instead standing in front of Xuanhuan and Zhuifeng. The spiritual barrier around his body deflected most of the arrows, and the remaining ones didn't do much damage to Xuanhuan and Zhuifeng. "Are you from the Beastmaster Academy?" "I'm Limo. Qinfeng, is Master Qin here?" Limo called out loudly, his voice imbued with spiritual energy, and the entire forest reverberated with his voice. The arrows that were flying over all stopped at this moment. Before anyone could be seen, a deep male voice rang out. "Limo. I'm Qinfeng." A tall, burly man dressed in beast skin walked out of the forest, followed by a dozen or so men and women. "Master Mo, it's really Master Mo," one of the youths exclaimed as soon as he saw Limo. "Ah, thank goodness. Someone from Kongming Academy has finally come to save us. I thought I'd never be able to return home." Sob. When these youths saw Limo, Xuanhuan, and the others, they were all extremely emotional, and some of the girls even started crying uncontrollably. Qinfeng walked up to Limo and suddenly threw his head back and laughed heartily. "It's been 3 years, Limo." The tall, burly man looked at Limo with tears in his eyes. "I've brought these students to this damned place for 3 years, and you're finally here." After a brief conversation, Limo followed Qinfeng and the other Beastmaster students to their temporary lodgings. It was a very simple cave with only a few pieces of beast skin, a few simple weapons and a few campfires. Xuanhuan and the others were all very surprised. In such a beautiful and resourceful place, how could a group of cultivators be living in such dire straits? The cave was rather dark, and as soon as they entered, a dozen or so people surrounded Xuanhuan's group and began asking questions at once. "How's Kongming Academy? Are the others from the Beastmaster Academy doing well? Master Imo, how are our parents? Master Imo, we'd like to go back now. When are you going to take us back? One of the students asked. Kongming Academy's all-seeing mirror allows us to see a valley here, and it's where the spiritual energy is the most abundant. We need to find it and get in touch with the first elder from there. Isn't the spiritual beast valley the one with the most abundant spiritual energy? One of the female students asked. As soon as the female student mentioned the valley, everyone's expression darkened. What's the matter? Is there something wrong with the valley? Xuanhuan asked. The valley is a very special place and we don't even dare to go near it, Master Qin replied. What's special about it? Xuanhuan and Zhuo Yifeng asked simultaneously. The group of students all revealed expressions of lingering fear. Finally, Master Qin began, there's a cave there, but we don't know where it leads to, but from time to time things will come out of it. Things? What things? Xuanhuan asked curiously. Sometimes it's a large group of beasts like the horde from yesterday. These beasts usually wander around aimlessly, leaving a mess wherever they go, one of the students explained. Sometimes it's people from a different dimension, the female student explained. The female student continued to explain with a trembling voice, their cultivations are very high. They came here to hunt magical beasts. But if they see us, the men will be killed without mercy, and the women will be taken away. Chapter 316. Xuanhuan, Zhuo Yifeng, and Liamo were all stunned by the explanations of the students and Master Qin. There was actually a cave here that could connect to another world? Qin Feng, what exactly happened after you arrived here 3 years ago? Liamo's gaze swept over the surrounding students. I remember very clearly that when the first elder and I brought you in 3 years ago, there were 33 of you. Now there are only 16 of you left. Have the rest been killed? Qin Feng sighed, slowly recounting the events of the past 3 years to Liamo. Back then, Qin Feng had brought a total of 33 students and instructors from the Beast Taming Hall through a formation set up by the All-Seeing Mirror. However, as soon as they entered, they encountered a horde of high-ranked beasts at that. Although the cultivation of these 33 people was not low, in a situation where they were completely unprepared, they could not withstand a single blow from the high-grade demonic beasts. The 33 people were quickly scattered by the demonic beasts. I brought 7 people to search for the scattered students. After 3 days we were only able to find 11 people. The rest of the students went missing during the attack of the demonic beast. Even now we don't know if they are alive or dead. Qin Feng said in a low voice. One of those magical beasts was a bloodthirsty demon lion. I saw a senior sister get swallowed by one of them, and the rest of the juniors were likely in their stomachs as well, a skinny, muscular youth said. A skinny, muscular youth called out. Xuanhuan had heard the others call him Tian. I didn't expect to encounter such danger as soon as I entered, nor did I expect to see so many missing students. As a result, I gave up on the idea of hunting the beast. All I wanted to do was find the missing students and return to the academy, Qin Feng continued. Qin Feng continued, but 5 days later, when we returned to the formation according to the original time, we discovered that the formation had disappeared. We had completely lost contact with the academy. At that time, Qin Feng and his students had tried all sorts of methods to contact the academy, but all of them had failed. In the end they had given up all hope. Apart from the despair of not being able to contact the academy, they soon discovered that this seemingly beautiful space was actually filled with unimaginable dangers. Beasts would appear from time to time, as well as strange winds that would suddenly appear, as well as ferocious beasts that would devour humans. What was even more frightening was that one day they actually met people from another world in a valley. At first, we were very happy to see them, thinking that they were people from the Xuanhuan continent. We thought that we could go home with them, but when they found out about our current situation, they immediately turned violent, said a female student called Haiyan. Out of our 3 instructors, 2 of the male instructors were killed on the spot, and the female instructor was kidnapped by them. They said that they would bring her back to a place called the Darkest Land to be sold, Tian said. At this point there was a short period of silence in the cave. This was something that the surviving students did not want to recall. They needed time to calm their pain and fear. In that case, how did you escape from them? Xuanhuan asked after a short while. Didn't we escape? Qin Feng replied, these people are extremely cruel and vicious. They feel that killing us like this is too boring, so they want to play a game with us. Every time someone is chosen to play with them, the loser will be killed. All 7 of my instructors were killed in the game, and I'm the only one who survived. What kind of game? Yun Ruoyan and Zhuo Yifeng asked almost at the same time. Yun Ruoyan clenched her hands tightly. Because she was so angry, her hands had turned red. Zhuo Yifeng also gripped his bow tightly. Qin Feng said that this game was called the Gophers game by the people from the other dimension. They believed that they were of a higher status than the people from the Xuanhuan continent, so they called themselves Gophers. The so-called Gophers game was to divide up a region and have one of Qin Feng's students enter that region as prey, while the people from the other dimension would enter to hunt. It would last for 3 days. Within these 3 days, if the prey could successfully hide without being discovered and not be eaten by the magical beasts in this area, then the winner would be the winner. I was the first to play this game, Qin Feng said. Qin Feng said, I almost died inside. In the end, I was lucky enough to escape, but my instructors were not as lucky as me. When Qin Feng mentioned this game, the faces of the 10 or so students all turned pale. Of the 7 instructors, the last had been killed in the previous game, and the remaining students would have to take over. If even the instructors didn't survive, we'd be going to our deaths, one student said. Not necessarily, Tian consoled. Tian comforted everyone, saying, I remember the last game was 3 months ago, maybe those demons from the other world have already forgotten about us. If we can return to the Xuanhuan continent before those demons arrive, we'll be saved. That's right, there's hope for us to return now. I don't have to play that damned game anymore and we don't have to die. That's great. Tian's words had indeed saved everyone from their fear. But the Valley of Spiritual Beasts isn't a good place to go. Qin Feng's face was still full of worry. Those demons forbid us from entering, and they've set up a special barrier there. If we barge in, they'll know immediately. Do we have to go to the valley to set up a teleportation array? Can't we do it elsewhere? Qin Feng asked. Liamo knew that Qin Feng wasn't a timid person, but the fact that he was so nervous was enough to show just how frightening those demons were. But the more he thought about it, the more he wanted to go and see for himself. Yun Ruoyan and Zhuo Yifeng shared Liamo's sentiments. Since they were here to face all sorts of dangers, and if they wanted to return, the Valley of Spiritual Beasts was the only way out. In another half a year, we'll be going to the alternate dimension to train, Liamo told Qin Feng. Liamo turned to Qin Feng. We'd like to make use of this opportunity to see how many heads and arms they have. Liamo had learned quite a bit about the foreign world from the first elder. The most important of which was that the people there were generally very powerful cultivators. Even a random person on the streets was an 8th-rank blade master. In addition, there were no laws in the alternate dimension, and the only law was one's cultivation. There was no country and all the resources were controlled by a few of the larger families. These families often fought with each other and many people died in each battle. In short, the alternate dimension was a very cruel place. Now that Liamo had heard from the crowd, the description of the otherworldly beings was quite accurate to what he had imagined. Cruel, cold-blooded, and inhumane. It's already dark. Let's rest for the night and set off for the Spiritual Beast Valley tomorrow, Liamo suggested. All right, in that case I'll take you there tomorrow, Qin Feng replied. After a simple meal, the group quickly fell asleep. For some reason, Yun Ruoyan suddenly couldn't fall asleep. Beside her was Haiyan. She was also tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Haiyan. Yun Ruoyan called out. Haiyan turned to Yun Ruoyan. Sister Ruoyan, what's the matter? Haiyan was a very young girl. Yun Ruoyan was already an adult, but Haiyan was only 14 years old. How did you enter the beast taming hall at such a young age? And you don't seem to have a very high cultivation? Yun Ruoyan asked curiously. Yun Ruoyan's impression was that those who could enter the 3 halls of the 5 colleges had to be at least as strong as she was. However, none of the 16 students had a cultivation higher than Yun Ruoyan's. Beast taming is different from pill masters, forge masters, and blade masters, Haiyan explained to Yun Ruoyan. As beast taming students, their talents as beast taming students were revealed relatively early, and they had to start training at an early age. Almost all of the current students had been chosen to enter the beast taming hall as soon as they entered Kongming Academy. Haiyan's father was an instructor at the beast taming hall, so Haiyan grew up there. We had a few powerful seniors, but they all died in the game. My father died in the game last month, and perhaps I'll be the next to die. Haiyan's voice grew softer and softer, and her body began to tremble. It'll be fine. Yun Ruoyan patted her comfortingly. We'll definitely bring all of you back to the academy, don't be afraid. Yes. Haiyan turned to Yun Ruoyan, her eyes full of hope. "Hai Yin, can I ask you another question?" Yun Ruoyan asked. "What is it?" "There's a lake not far from here, and there's a well-preserved wooden hut by the lake. Is that where you live together?" "No," Hai Yin replied. Hai Yin replied, "The house was already there when we arrived, but we don't know who lived there before." Based on the decorations inside, Master Qin speculated that there might have been a couple living there, but for some reason the couple suddenly left. "Oh, is that so?" Yun Ruoyan was deep in thought. Actually, when she saw that cottage she felt that it was very familiar. She was sure that she'd seen it somewhere before and perhaps even visited it before, but she couldn't remember when or how. Since she couldn't think of anything, she decided not to think about it. Li Mo and Qin Feng were keeping watch outside the cave, and she finally fell into a deep sleep. The next day, Qin Feng instructed the remaining students to remain in the cave. Then he brought Li Mo, Yun Ruoyan, and Zhui Feng toward the Valley of Spiritual Beasts. Originally, the three of them had wanted to fly on their swords, but Qin Feng stopped them. He said that flying on a sword would cause a strange wind to blow, and that the strange wind would attack the swordsman, as if it were some sort of restriction. In short, flying on a sword was forbidden here. Since they couldn't fly on their swords, they could only rely on their feet. The four of them traveled without stopping for an entire day before finally arriving at the Valley of Spiritual Beasts, which was said to be a terrifying place, but looked like a paradise in the all-seeing mirror. Chapter 317. Under Qin Feng's lead, Yun Ruoyan's trio entered the valley. As soon as they entered, Qin Feng grew visibly nervous. He had everyone conceal their auras as much as possible, and they had to move quickly to end the battle as quickly as possible. Yun Ruoyan looked around at the vast valley of spiritual beasts. It was verdant and lush, and there were more than a dozen herbivorous beasts roaming around in search of food. If not for Qin Feng's constant nervousness, she would have thought that this was a paradise on earth. "Where's the cave where the beasts and otherworldly beings come from? I'd like to take a look," Yun Ruoyan asked Qin Feng. Qin Feng turned to look at Yun Ruoyan, his brows furrowed and his expression troubled. "Let's find the place with the densest spiritual energy." In order to find the place with the densest spiritual energy, they couldn't completely conceal their auras. As a result, Li Mo released a portion of his own aura. He injected his spiritual power into his eyes and saw that there was a place at the back of the valley that was emitting a white light. "Over there," Li Mo replied. "That's the place with the densest spiritual energy, the best place to set up a teleportation formation." When Qin Feng saw where he was pointing, his frown deepened and his expression became ugly. He sighed and said, "That is where the mysterious cave is." Although they knew that it was an extremely dangerous place, they still headed in that direction. But under Qin Feng's influence, they were even more cautious. 15 minutes later, a gigantic ancient tree appeared in front of them. 15 to 16 people wouldn't be able to surround the tree, and there was a huge cave on the tree's body. The entrance of the cave was deep and serene, and there were thick vines crawling along its edges, obscuring the darkness inside even more. "This is the cave entrance. 3 years ago we accidentally discovered this place. My 3 instructors went in to investigate, but in the end they were kidnapped by 3 people from another world. They killed 2 male instructors in front of us and then took the female instructor away," Qin Feng said. "The 4 of them were hiding in a shrub not far from the cave. According to what you're saying, this cave is a pathway to the otherworldly realm," Zhui Feng said. Zhui Feng said, "If we go in from here, we might be able to save that female instructor." "Absolutely not," Qin Feng hurriedly interrupted him. He then looked at this young man who was born like a calf who was not afraid of tigers and said, "You guys have not seen their prowess before. If you enter from here you will only be courting death." Zhui Feng did not refute Qin Feng's words, but he stubbornly stared at the entrance of the cave. Yun Ruoyan turned to Qin Feng and Li Mo, "We can't just sneak around like this. If we want to establish contact with the first elder and set up a teleportation formation, there'll be a huge commotion. Stay here and don't move. I'll go take a look," Li Mo said, then stood up from the bushes. "I'll go with you." Yun Ruoyan stood up as well. Li Mo glanced at her before extending his hand toward her, and the 2 of them walked out of the shrubbery, hand in hand. As soon as the 2 of them walked out, Zhui Feng also stood up. "The 3 of you." Qin Feng saw the 3 of them walking towards the entrance of the cave, so he could only follow them. As Yun Ruoyan and Li Mo walked toward the entrance of the cave, both of them could feel the dense spiritual energy gushing out of the cave. When the 2 of them injected their spiritual power into their eyes to look at the entrance of the cave, they saw white cloud-like spiritual energy continuously gushing out of the cave. As expected, this is the source of all the spiritual energy in this alternate dimension, Liamo exclaimed. Roar! Just as the two of them approached the entrance of the cave, they suddenly heard a high-pitched roar coming from the depths of the cave. Roar! Then roars of magical beasts rang out one after another from within the cave. At the same time, the tremors of the earth and mountains shaking spread out from the entrance of the cave. A horde of beasts is coming out. Qin Feng cried out. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 or 3 beasts with sharp fangs and leopard markings all over their bodies rushed out of the cave. Their movements were so fast and ferocious that Xuanhuan and Liamo had never seen anything like this on the Qinyuan continent. Ignoring Qin Feng's warning against flying on swords, the 3 of them leapt onto their swords. Liamo took Xuanhuan, and Zhui Feng took Qin Feng into the air, looking down at the horde of beasts rushing out of the cave. However, in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, nearly 100 leopard-tattooed beastes with sharp mouths and fangs came out of the hole. Following that, a large number of sharp-horned devil antelopes came out, and the hole in the giant tree seemed to have become even bigger. After a steady stream of magical beasts rushed out of the cave, they ran in groups in all directions. Everywhere they went, the earth shook and the mountains shook. It was a complete mess. The demonic beasts that were originally in the Spirit Beast Valley were either killed, injured, or escaped from the impact. The roars and wails of the demonic beasts echoed throughout the entire Spirit Beast Valley. However, this alternate space was indeed very large. With so many magical beasts suddenly barging in, they could only cause damage to a small area and did not have a big impact on the entire space. When the number of beasts gradually decreased, Liamo turned to Qin Feng and asked, "Where's your spiritual sword?" Qin Feng cultivated earth elemental spiritual energy, and his sword was a yellow earth-attuned spiritual sword known as the Great Ravager. However, he hadn't used it in the nick of time, so Liamo asked. "It was stolen by a man from an alternate dimension called Thunder Soul," Qin Feng replied from behind Zhui Feng. Zhui Feng and Xuanhuan couldn't help but turn to look at him. A spiritual sword was extremely important to a blade master. Furthermore, after becoming a blade master, spiritual swords would become more and more useful to a blade master's cultivation. After becoming a blade master, spiritual swords would become more and more useful to a blade master's cultivation. If a blade master's spiritual sword was destroyed or stolen, they would have to replace it with a new one. Otherwise, their cultivation would slow down or even stagnate. I suggest that we leave this place immediately. Despite his tall and burly figure, Qin Feng always seemed timid, which Xuanhuan and Zhui Feng didn't like. Even Liamo frowned. When a slender black hound suddenly chased the last colossal armed monkey out of the cave, Qin Feng's expression became even more grim. He sighed and said, "There's no need to leave now, it's too late." "Someone's coming," Xuanhuan exclaimed. She saw 2 figures following the slender black dog out of the cave. "They're from an alternate dimension." Qin Feng's deep voice rang out. The 2 people who walked out of the cave were a boy and a girl. Both looked to be younger than Xuanhuan, around 12 or 13 years old. The girl was dressed in a bright red outfit, and her hair was slightly red, tied into a high ponytail. Her face was a contradictory combination of immaturity and beauty. The youth, on the other hand, had short hair that was as red as fire, and clumps of hair pointed in all directions. He was dressed in black, revealing his muscular arms, and carried a large sword on his back. Both of them were young, but they gave off an aura of sharpness that didn't match their age. The young girl raised her head and saw the 4 people in the sky. She let out a cry of surprise and a smile appeared on her face. She turned to the youth beside her. "Thunderbolt, look. There are 3 new faces here." The youth tilted his head and said with some interest, "3 people are fun. Hunters are always more interesting than hunting wild beasts, and I like the taste of human blood. 2 of them can fly on their swords and they should be 8th-rank blade masters," the girl said, tapping her chin with a finger. "That's rare. I heard that the hamsters in the lower realms have to train until they're 20 or 30 to become 8th-rank blade masters, but these people look pretty young." As the youth spoke, he felt a gaze land on him and he turned to meet Zhui Feng's gaze. Their gazes were equally sharp and piercing, and it seemed as if sparks would fly even from a distance. Interesting, the youth began to grow excited. How dare they be so arrogant with such a low cultivation? After saying that, he turned to the slender black hound in front of him that looked no different from a normal puppy and said, "Thunderbolt, go get me that kid with the bow." "No, Thunderbolt, bring me that girl in the red dress," the girl in the red outfit ordered. The black dog, Thunderbolt, didn't know what to do and could only shake its tail and walk around in circles. Thunderbolt glanced at Xuanhuan, who was hovering in Li Mo's arms. She was an extremely beautiful girl, a beauty that was rare even in their world. Thunderbolt turned to the girl and smiled. That girl isn't bad. She should be worth quite a lot of spirit crystals in the Twilight Realm. Then the youth turned to Thunderbolt. Bring me that girl and I'll reward you with a blood lingji mushroom. Black Hound Thunderbolt howled as it rolled on the ground. Then it stood up and stomped its hind legs in the direction of Xuanhuan. Like a bolt of lightning it flew away. Whoosh! Zhui Yifeng fired an arrow at Black Hound, causing sparks to fly out from the bow in Zhui Yifeng's hand. Zhui Yifeng's archery had always been top-notch, and he had never missed his target. Even Li Mo had acknowledged this. Now that he was an 8th-rank blade master, the power of his arrows had doubled. Even if he couldn't kill the black dog, he should at least be able to injure it severely. But strangely, when the Black Hound saw Zhui Yifeng's arrow, its lightning-fast speed actually paused for a brief moment in midair. It was this strange pause that allowed the tiger canine arrowhead to graze the Black Hound's fur and miss its target. The black dog bared its sharp fangs and bit down at Xuanhuan. Hey, Thunderbolt, don't bite through the skin or it'll be worthless, the youth called out anxiously, but his voice was stuck in his throat the next moment. Li Mo's hand was gripping the dog's neck, and it was dangling in midair. Li Mo's hand was covered in a layer of blue ice, and there was a fang mark on it. Chapter 318. Thunderbolt. Li Mo shouted at the sky, his eyes glinting as he looked at Li Mo and Xuanhuan, who was still in his embrace. The Black Hound in Li Mo's hand was spitting out a mouthful of blood. Its tongue was hanging out of its mouth and there was a gaping hole in its chest. When the Black Hound had pounced at Xuanhuan, Li Mo had reached out to grab it, but the hound had agilely changed directions in midair and bit down on Li Mo's arm. However, Li Mo was a peak sword saint. His powerful spiritual energy immediately seeped out of his body, and a faint blue ice crystal formed on his arm. The Black Hound bit down on the ice crystal. It didn't look particularly special, but its fangs were incredibly sharp. Even the ice crystal formed by Li Mo's spiritual energy left a deep mark on it. Xuanhuan, on the other hand, didn't hesitate to stab the dagger in her hand into the Black Hound's heart. As a result, this scene unfolded in the blink of an eye. You! The youth pointed a finger at Li Mo. How dare you kill my cloud-devouring beast? I'll bury all of you with me. You gophers sure have guts, Lai Yun yelled at Li Mo and the others. How dare you fight back? You must be tired of living. What a joke. Are we just going to wait for death if we don't fight back? Zhui Yifeng replied coldly. Li Mo held Xuanhuan in one hand and Thunderbolt in the other as he looked down at the youths below. Dressed in a black robe, he asked coldly, Where did you come from? You lowly gophers aren't fit to ask us where we come from. Prepare to die. Is that so? Li Mo replied coolly, then loosened his grip. The Black Hound fell from the sky, landing heavily on the ground. Then the Black Hound's corpse began to transform. In the end, it turned into a rather large black magical beast. Unfortunately, it was already a dead magical beast. Just you wait. The young man looked at the corpses of the magic beasts on the ground and took out the sword on his back. He formed a sword seal and the sword let out a yellow light and floated up. The youth leapt onto the sword and rose into the air, facing off against Xuanhuan and Li Mo. Li Mo's gaze landed on the giant sword beneath the youth's feet. It seemed extremely familiar to him. Without turning his head, he asked, Qin Feng, is the sword beneath that kid's feet your obelisk? Yes, that's the great ravager that was stolen from me. Qin Feng said, Li Mo, this brat is called Splitter Yang. He's not hard to deal with. The hard one is his brother, Splitter Mountain. His brother was also a peak blade master and was extremely powerful. Many of the barriers here were set up by him. Li Mo narrowed his eyes, then beckoned at the Thunderbolt. Thunderclap's son was already furious, and Li Mo's provocation only served to inflame him further. With a loud roar, he retrieved a snow-white spiritual sword and charged at Li Mo. Li Mo and the others had concealed their auras, and in the eyes of the youth and the girl, they were only 8th-rank blade masters. When the youth charged at Li Mo abruptly unleashed his cultivation as a peak blade master. The gust of spirit energy had almost completely dissipated the youth's momentum. The spirit sword that the youth was holding stabbed into the chi wave formed by the gust of spirit energy, but was unable to move forward even a little bit. Lai Yun, who was on the ground, suddenly reacted and shouted at the youth in the air, Thunderbolt, come back. That person's hiding his strength and you're no match for him. Come back. Thunderbolt also reacted, but it was already too late. Liemo raised the hand that had formed the blue crystal and extended it toward him. A blue vortex slowly formed in Liemo's palm, and that blue vortex formed a suction force that slowly drew the youth into his palm. The girl panicked when she saw this, and with a flip of her hand, she threw a flying dagger at Liemo. Yunruoyan, on the other hand, had been paying attention to the girl's movements the entire time. She quickly deflected the dagger with a fireball. She's hiding her strength as well? Lai Yun was astonished. Yunruoyan had been concealing her cultivation as a 5th-rank blade master all this time, but now she had suddenly revealed herself to be a peak 8th-rank blade master. Who are they? The girl wondered. Aren't the hamsters supposed to have low cultivations? How could one of them be a peak blade master? By now, Thunderbolt was in Liemo's hand, just as he had the dog, and Qin Feng's sword had returned to his hand. Go back and tell Splitter Mountain to bring back our female instructor in exchange for his brother, Liemo instructed Lai Yun. Liemo turned to Lai Yun. Tomorrow at the latest, or I'll have him collect his brother's corpse. The girl looked up at Liemo as she retreated toward the entrance of the cave. Just you wait. If you dare harm a single hair on Thunderbolt's head, all of the hamsters here will die. As the girl disappeared into the cave, Liemo's group didn't linger in the valley. Instead they hurried back. In order to save time on their way back, the group flew on their swords. The youth was tied up by Liemo's vines and held up in his hands. As the youth cursed and pinched, Zhuifeng grabbed a handful of grass from the ground and stuffed it into the youth's mouth. On the way back, they were once again attacked by the strange wind and leaves. This time, however, Liemo's force field blocked the wind with spiritual energy. However, Yunruoyan discovered something strange. When the leaf had attacked, it had only attacked the 4 of them, not the youth in Liemo's hands. As a result, Yunruoyan began questioning the youth. Hey! Yunruoyan kicked the youth. Let me ask you, why didn't the leaves attack you? The youth's mouth was stuffed with grass and he couldn't speak. Even if he could speak, he would only curse loudly. Hey! Yunruoyan kicked him again and the youth turned to glare at her, but Yunruoyan ignored him. After roughly 2 hours, the group returned to the cave. The dozen or so students were shocked to see Liemo carrying a person from a different world. The youth was thrown into a corner of the cave. The students had all suffered at the hands of the otherworldly man, and they could no longer suppress the anger in their hearts. They began to beat and kick the youth. In the process, the grass in the youth's mouth fell out, and he began to curse again. You lowly creatures, stinky hamsters, how dare you treat the 2nd young master of the Splitter family like this? I'll crush you to pieces. Alright. But before we do, we'll kill you first for the sake of our seniors and instructors. Tianfeng shouted angrily. His kicks became heavier and heavier, and the youth was soon beaten black and blue. Alright, that's enough. Yunruoyan walked over to the angry students. Tomorrow we're going to use him to exchange for your instructors. Don't kill him. Only then did the students stop beating the youth and disperse. Yunruoyan hugged her arms as she looked down at the bruised and battered youth on the ground. The youth spat out a mixture of grass and fresh blood. Stinky woman, don't think that I'll be grateful to you. When my brother comes to capture you, I'll still have to sell you. Yunruoyan stuffed his mouth with the grass on the ground again. That night, as they sat together for dinner, the students asked them what had happened in the spiritual beast valley. To boost their morale, Qin Feng recounted how Liemo had captured the youth. Indeed, the students were greatly encouraged, and the fear of the otherworldly man that had been hanging over their heads for so long was greatly reduced. It turned out that the people from the other world were not invincible. I'll go take a look. Yunruoyan whispered into Liemo's ear. She grabbed a roasted drumstick and a flask of water, walked up to the youth by the corner and kicked him. The youth opened his eyes. Yunruoyan knelt down and helped him up. Then she removed the grass from his mouth and brought the canteen to his lips. The youth first looked at Yunruoyan, but he didn't drink. Yunruoyan replied coldly, "Drink or you'll die of thirst before tomorrow." Only then did the young man open his mouth to drink a mouthful of water. He did not swallow the first mouthful of water. Instead, he rinsed and spat out the dirt in his mouth before drinking it in big gulps. After drinking the water, Yunruoyan handed the roasted drumstick to him before standing up to leave. Wait. The youth stopped Yunruoyan and said, I don't owe you a favor. Otherwise, you won't be satisfied when I kill you tomorrow. Yunruoyan smiled at the youth, waiting for him to speak again. The reason those leaves didn't attack me today was because I had our avoidance charm on me, the youth continued. My brother was the one who set up the restriction on flying swords, and he was the one who made the avoidance charm for me. Where is it? Xuanhuan squatted down again and looked at the youth with wide eyes. Show me that avoidance charm. It's in my arms, the youth replied. Help me loosen it and I'll show it to you. As soon as the youth finished speaking, Xuanhuan reached her hand into the youth's robes and began searching. Hey you. The youth's eyes widened as he looked at Xuanhuan, who was only a few feet away from him. Found it? Xuanhuan exclaimed happily. She took her hand out of his robes and revealed a square object folded with yellow paper between her fingers. You little rat, how dare you? Not only did the youth's eyes widen, but he also seemed to be blushing. Xuanhuan held the yellow paper in her palm and glanced at the youth. Brat, don't call me a rat. You're in our hands right now, and when we save our people tomorrow, we'll see if the students here don't skin you alive. Chapter 319. What? I saved your people and you'll eat me alive? The youth laughed as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. Stop dreaming. Once my brother makes his move, you'll all die. Are all otherworlders as good at bragging as you? Xuanhuan crossed her arms and smiled at the youth. Weren't you the one who got your teeth knocked out today? Umph. The youth snorted. I'm only 13 this year and I'm a peak 7th rank blade master. Of course I couldn't defeat that black-robed man, but my brother is a 2nd rank sword saint. That black-robed man is at most a 1st rank sword saint, and he's nothing in front of my brother. Do you know how much of a difference in strength there is between a single rank and a sword saint's cultivation? I dare say that as long as my brother makes his move, that black-robed man will die for sure. The youth's words were extremely arrogant, but Xuanhuan didn't think he was boasting. After all, they knew far too little about the otherworldly world. Of those who had been to the otherworldly world, the first elder and Yunlan, they were all extremely secretive about it, and Xuanhuan didn't know why. This time, however, she could learn more about the otherworldly world from this youth. Xuanhuan didn't interrupt the youth, but instead asked him a lot of questions with great interest. The youth had been quite depressed after being kidnapped, and now that he was bragging about how strong he was, it was a good way to vent his frustrations. Through the youth's explanation, Xuanhuan learned that the otherworldly world wasn't actually a single world, but rather a continent made up of many different dimensions. The Xuanhuan continent was just one of the most insignificant of the many dimensions, and in the youth's words they belonged to the lowest realm. The continent the youth was on was called the Xuanhuan continent, a mid-ranked continent. Apart from the low-ranked and mid-ranked continents, there was also a high-ranked continent called the Extreme Abyss continent. Those who came to the Dark Abyss continent from lower realms were called gophers by the natives of the Dark Abyss continent. There were 2 reasons for this name. One was because they felt that people from lower realms were too insignificant, and the other was because they would be given an identity medallion upon entering the Dark Abyss continent. The emblem of a gopher was carved into the medallion. Xuanhuan had learned from the youth that a large number of lower realm cultivators would go to the Dark Abyss continent every year. They had to do the hardest work there and their lives weren't guaranteed. On the Dark Abyss continent, people of lower realms usually lived like dogs, struggling at death's door. Many of them died on the Dark Abyss continent. The young man said, there are a few who manage to endure for a certain period of time and obtain the opportunity to return to a lower plane, but those people are as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. The youth's words caused Xuanhuan to sink into deep thought. She'd had many fantasies about the alternate world, but she'd never imagined that it would be like this. It turned out that the Xuanhuan continent was just a drop in the ocean of this world. It turned out that there were many other continents like theirs in this world. In the eyes of the otherworlders, they were as insignificant as rats from a low-tier plane, insignificant creatures that could be easily killed. Xuanhuan's worldview had been refreshed. This world was far more complex and vast than the one she knew. Hey, what's wrong with you? Are you scared out of your wits? The young man smiled and said, I advise you bunch of gophers to obediently welcome my big brother's wrath tomorrow with the attitude of a lowly creature. Maybe my big brother will be merciful and not kill you immediately. My brother loves to play games of catching people. If you can win the game by a fluke, then you can stay in the hunting ground and continue to struggle at death's door. You're the one who's living at death's door. Xuanhuan smacked the youth's head hard before turning to leave. Xuanhuan returned to Li Mo's side and told him everything she had heard from the youth. She also handed the square piece of yellow paper to Li Mo. Just like Xuanhuan, Li Mo fell silent for a long time after hearing all of this. Didn't the first elder tell you about the alternate world? Xuanhuan asked Li Mo, Yes, but only a small part of it, Liamo replied. He's never mentioned it in such detail. What about mother? Didn't she tell you about it? Now that Yun Ruoyan was married to Liamo, she also addressed Empress Shuetong as her mother. Yun Ruoyan knew that Empress Shuetong was from an alternate world, but she didn't know exactly which one. Mother is from the extreme abyss continent that you mentioned. She's a holy maiden of the Silver Dragon clan, and her movements are restricted. She's never been to the extreme abyss continent, so she's not familiar with it. The extreme abyss continent is a high-class continent, and Mother said that it's sparsely populated and isn't as interesting as the human realm. That's why she found an opportunity to sneak into the Xuanhuan continent to meet my father and stay here. Yun Ruoyan leaned her head on Limo's shoulder and closed her eyes. By now it was already late at night and most of the students had gone to rest. Only a few remained by the fire, chatting quietly. Just as Liamo thought that Yun Ruoyan had fallen asleep, Yun Ruoyan spoke up. Liamo, I'm a little worried about tomorrow. If that Thunderbolt Badian is really as powerful as Thunderbolt Yang says, and he's a second-level sword saint, I'm afraid we really won't be his match. Liamo patted Yun Ruoyan's back gently. If we really encounter any danger tomorrow, immediately activate the teleportation scroll. All right, Yun Ruoyan said. Liamo held Yun Ruoyan in one hand, and in the other he was studying the yellow paper that Yun Ruoyan had taken from Thunderbolt Yang. She had heard from the First Elder and Empress Shuetong that talismans and formations were relatively high-class techniques that could only be used by cultivators who had reached the realm of Sword Saint. Such cultivators were as rare as a phoenix's feather on the Xuanhuan continent, so talismans and formations were on the verge of extinction. Liamo looked at the yellow paper in his hand. It seemed that these two techniques were fairly common in this alternate world. In contrast to Yun Ruoyan's worries, he was very much looking forward to tomorrow's battle. It had been a long time since Liamo had fought a truly strong opponent. Just a few days before their wedding, he had gone to the Minghuang Mountains Dragon Vein again. This time he had defeated the Silver Dragon Elder with almost no effort at all. At that time, Liamo hadn't even reached the realm of Sword Saint. Now that he desperately needed to fight against a true expert so that he could unleash his full strength. The next day, when Liamo's group of 4 brought Thunderbolt Yang to the cave that led to the alternate world, Thunderbolt Badian didn't appear. 4 people came out of the cave. Lai Yun walked in front, and 3 burly men followed behind her. Judging from their attire, they should be guards. However, the 3 of them were all peak 9th rank blade masters. Lai Yun said that Thunderbolt Badian had gone to participate in an important tournament and wouldn't be back until 3 days later. She also said that she'd already sent someone to search for the female instructor who had been sold off. The 2 parties agreed to meet again in 3 days to carry out the exchange, and within these 3 days, Li Mo's side had to ensure Thunderbolt's safety, while Lai Yun's side had to guarantee that no one would step into the valley. Yun Ruoyan was very happy with this arrangement. In 2 days they would be able to contact the First Elder, and if they were lucky, they might even be able to establish a teleportation array to send the 16 students back to the valley without any interference. Thunderbolt Yang, on the other hand, was living a life worse than death. Every single one of the 16 students hated him to the core, and if not for Yun Ruoyan holding him back, who knew how many times he would have been beaten every day. When the students saw that Yun Ruoyan was protecting Thunderbolt Yang, they began to recount the youth's various crimes, such as having his Black Hound drive magical beasts to destroy the home they had worked so hard to build. For example, he had injured one of the students and arrogantly mocked them in a game of manhunting. As the students recounted his crimes, Thunderbolt Yang only laughed at them the entire time, without the slightest hint of repentance. In his heart, the people in front of him were all lowly existences, even worse than the magical beasts he had raised. However, after Yun Ruoyan's warning, despite his disdain, Thunderbolt Yang didn't try to make things difficult for himself. The protection he had received over the past few days had made him feel a little grateful toward Yun Ruoyan, but he didn't know that Yun Ruoyan had a motive for doing so. Over the past 2 days, Yun Ruoyan had learned quite a bit about the Heiyuan continent that they would be heading to in half a year. There was no kingdom on the continent, only a few relatively powerful families. The Thunderbolt family, the Lai family, the Wu family, the Feng family, the Zheng family, the Hua family, and the Qin family. Thunderbolt Yang was the second young master of the Lai family, and his father, Thunderbolt, was the head of the Thunderbolt family. Yun Ruoyan also learned that the dimension they were currently in was just one of the Thunderbolt family's hunting grounds, a place where the scions of the large families could hunt for fun. Based on the youth's tone, Xuanhuan and the other gophers from the lower plains deserve to be hunted down as prey for entering their hunting grounds by mistake. Xuanhuan didn't refute his words as fiercely as the others, nor did she mock him disdainfully. Instead, she listened calmly, her face expressionless. In Xuanhuan's eyes, the youth's words could be interpreted in another way. You're weak, you don't have enough power, and so you deserve to be bullied. Be it in her past life or this one, Xuanhuan had a deeper understanding of this situation. She didn't feel angry or sad, only a determined heart that would continue to grow stronger. I'm not the same kind of person as these gophers, the youth said to Xuanhuan. How can you tell? Xuanhuan asked curiously. I don't know. It's just that I have a feeling that you and that black-robed ice-faced guy aren't from a lower plane. Xuanhuan and Li Mo had the silver dragon bloodline and the demonic dragon bloodline respectively. Strictly speaking, part of their bloodlines didn't belong to the Xuanhuan continent. This youth called Thunderbolt is arrogant and domineering. His cultivation isn't high, but he has a pair of good eyes, Xuanhuan thought. However, she naturally wouldn't tell him this. Xuanhuan smacked the youth's head and said coolly, You're thinking too much. Chapter 320. You seem quite close to that black-robed man. What's your relationship with him? Thunderclap asked as Xuanhuan turned to leave. Husband and wife. He's my husband, Xuanhuan replied without turning around. In the dead of night, Xuanhuan slowly drifted off to sleep in Li Mo's embrace. In her daze, she seemed to hear someone calling her name. Ruoyan. The voice was very familiar. It was none other than her mother, Lin Yueme. Xuanhuan stood up in a daze and looked in the direction of the voice. Mother? Xuanhuan searched for her mother amidst the white fog. Mother, where are you? In the blink of an eye, Xuanhuan had passed through the white fog and arrived at a valley. Under the bright moonlight, there was a small house next to a sparkling lake in the valley. Xuanhuan felt a sense of familiarity. Wasn't this the valley that they had arrived at when they had first entered this alternate dimension? Xuanhuan walked toward the hut, and when she finally got close to it, the sense of familiarity grew even stronger. Xuanhuan felt as if she had been here before, not when she had first entered this alternate dimension. Just then, a voice came from within the hut. Longyin, do you think they'll find this place? Xuanhuan recognized the voice as her mother's. She hurriedly walked forward, but the door wasn't closed. Xuanhuan stepped inside. Then she saw Lin Yueme lying on the bed, her complexion not looking too good. Meanwhile, the man she called Longyin was feeding her a bowl of steaming rice mouthful by mouthful. I don't know either, Longyin replied. Although this alternate dimension is well hidden, it's not impossible for them to find it. Longyin stopped what he was doing and turned to Lin Yueme. Yueme, if you're afraid, I'll send you back to the Xuanhuan continent. They won't dare to attack you on the Xuanhuan continent. No. Lin Yueme immediately sat up and said excitedly, Dragon Cry, I want to be with you. As long as I can be with you, I'm not afraid of anything. As Lin Yueme spoke, she grabbed Longyin's hand and placed it on her belly. And our daughter Yin, our family of 3 will be together forever in life and in death. A sudden gust of wind blew past, and Xuanhuan felt an icy chill on her face. She reached out to touch her face only to find that she was crying. Yueme, this is for you. Longyin took out a silver bracelet and placed it in Lin Yueme's hands. What a beautiful silver bracelet. Lin Yueme turned the bracelet over and over in her hands, allowing her to clearly see what it looked like. Xuanhuan looked at the bracelet on her wrist in shock, then stepped forward to look at Lin Yueme's bracelet. Only then was she sure that the silver bracelet was the one she was wearing on her wrist at the moment. This isn't an ordinary bracelet, Longyin explained to Lin Yueme. How so? Is there something special about it? Lin Yueme asked doubtfully. I found this bracelet by accident in the Beast King's palace, and there's a spiritual energy pocket within it. This pocket was sealed by a powerful spiritual energy, and it took me a great deal of effort to break a small crack in the seal. I found an ancient spirit beast, the flame Qilin, sealed inside, said Longyin. It seemed to have been severely injured and had reverted to its cub form. It's currently in a deep slumber. Because I've broken the seal, it should awaken in the near future. At that time you'll be able to form a blood pact with it and it'll protect you and our child. At Longyin's request, Lin Yueme dripped a drop of blood on the bracelet, and it became her possession. This bracelet had been given to Xuanhuan by her father, but before Xiao could awaken from her slumber, her mother had passed the bracelet on to Xuanhuan. If Xuanhuan could find her mother, she would surely be very happy to hear that Xiao had awakened. Xuanhuan looked at the bracelet on her wrist, and 2 streams of tears flowed down her cheeks. Although she had never seen Long Yin in person, every time she saw him in her dreams, she would have a strange feeling. This must be the feeling of kinship. Xuanhuan could clearly feel the deep love her father had for her mother and herself. And this, take it. Long Yin took out another item and placed it in Lin Yueme's hands, a scroll. What's this? Lin Yueme clearly didn't recognize the scroll, but Xuanhuan did. It was a spatial scroll, and once opened, Lin Yueme would be transported to another location. It's just a defensive artifact, Long Yin replied. Instead of telling Xuanhuan the truth, Dragon Cry said, if something unexpected happens, open the scroll and it'll protect you. Lin Yueme nodded as she took the scroll. Suddenly the scene changed from night to day. Lin Yueme was still lying on the bed, her complexion as pale as ever. Long Yin, I think the child in this womb is likely to be a boy. Lin Yueme's face was pale, but her smile was serene and loving. Otherwise, why would I have such a big reaction in just 2 short months? Long Yin was fiddling with a few pieces of wood in the room, trying to piece them together. Xuanhuan could tell that it was a baby's cradle. Daughters are precious, so your reaction must be a girl. Long Yin lifted his head from the pile of wood and smiled at Lin Yueme. Their gazes met through Xuanhuan's body, and she could clearly feel the deep love they had for each other in their eyes. Just then the earth shook violently and Lin Yueme screamed in fright. Yueme! Long Yin hurried forward to protect the frightened Lin Yueme. Young Master Long, you've really made it hard for us to find you. Once the surroundings had calmed down, a man's voice could be heard from the door. When Xuanhuan looked toward the door, she saw a man with a head full of red hair. His appearance was rather seductive and he wore a blue robe. Behind him were several burly men dressed like warriors. I didn't expect to be found even after escaping all the way here. Long Yin stood up and stood in front of Lin Yueme. I'm the one you want to capture, so don't hurt my wife. The red-haired man tilted his head to look at Lin Yueme. His eyes narrowed, and his lips curled into a demonic smile. That won't do. I'm under orders from the Grand Elder of the Silver Dragon clan to capture anyone with the demonic dragon bloodline. Apart from you, your wife also has a demonic dragon bloodline in her body. The red-haired man's gaze swept over Lin Yueme's abdomen, which she covered with her hand. You won't even spare a child, Long Yin murmured. The demonic dragon bloodline has the ability to resurrect the entire demonic dragon clan. The Silver Dragon Elder said that he'd rather kill 1,000 than let one live. The red-haired man said unhurriedly, however, if you are willing to tell us the location of the demon dragon tomb, we will destroy it and eliminate all the dragon souls. Your bloodline will be useless. In that case, we won't have to kill you. Do you want to consider it? Long Yin snorted. I won't betray my ancestors, so don't even think about it. Haven't you already betrayed them? The red-haired man continued. For the sake of the woman behind you, for the sake of your own life, you went against your own destiny and didn't heed the summons of the demonic dragon soul to resurrect them. Isn't that a betrayal? Not only are the silver dragons hunting you, but the demonic dragons are also searching for you. Only by destroying the demonic dragon clan will you be able to live a peaceful life, won't you? Enough with your flowery words, Long Yin said decisively. If you want to kill me, just do it. All right. Seeing that Long Yin wouldn't budge at all, the red-haired man's expression turned cold. Then don't blame me for being impolite. After the red-haired man finished speaking, he gestured to the samurai behind him. The samurai pulled out their swords from their waists and walked towards the dragon. Yueme, open the scroll. Long Yin turned to Lin Yueme. Protect yourself. Lin Yueme nodded, then opened the teleportation scroll in her hand. A white light shot out from the scroll and enveloped Lin Yueme. A moment later, Lin Yueme disappeared from everyone's sight. So there's such a trick. The red-haired man's anger flared as he pulled out a blood-red whip from his waist and lashed out in Long Yin's direction. Xuanhuan's entire body trembled as she awoke from her dream. What's wrong? Liamo was awakened by Xuanhuan's movements. When he looked down at her, he saw that her face was deathly pale, her forehead was beaded with sweat, and there seemed to be tears at the corners of her eyes. I had a dream. Xuanhuan pressed her head tightly against Liamo's chest. In my dream I saw my father and mother. Liamo gently stroked Xuanhuan's hair and rested his chin on top of her head. He didn't say a word, only quietly listening to her. Liamo, Xuanhuan finally raised her head. Come with me somewhere right now. The sky was still dark and the two of them arrived at the lakeside cottage. Now that she was back in this cottage, the place where her parents had once lived, her feelings were vastly different from the first time she had come here. Liamo, I came to this place in my dream, Xuanhuan said as she stroked the dusty bed. Xuanhuan stroked the dusty bed. When I first saw this room it felt very familiar, but I just couldn't remember where I'd seen it before. Now that I think about it, I've been here in my dreams and this is where my parents used to live. Where your parents used to live? Liamo couldn't help but be suspicious. Why would official Yun bring Madame here? Not my father from the Yun manor, Xuanhuan continued, but my own father. Chapter 321. Xuanhuan sat down on the simple wooden bed and slowly told Liamo everything about her birth. Liamo was only a little suspicious at first, but he wasn't shocked. He told Xuanhuan that ever since he had accompanied her to the demonic dragon tomb, he had begun to suspect that her father was her biological father. Of course, this was only a suspicion and he didn't have any proof. Now that he heard Xuanhuan's story, his suspicions cleared up. However, the fact that Xuanhuan possessed the demonic dragon bloodline still exceeded Liamo's expectations. Liamo, my father was ambushed by the silver dragon elders, and I don't know if he's dead or alive. My mother might still be alive but there's no trace of her. Xuanhuan curled up on the bed once more. I have the demonic dragon bloodline, and the silver dragons won't let me off if they find out. Don't worry, I'm here. Liamo pulled her into his embrace. Even if a deity from beyond the heavens were to appear, I wouldn't let them harm you in the slightest. My mother's body is also in the hands of the silver dragon first elder, and we'll seek justice from him. By daybreak, the group had once again arrived at the Valley of Spiritual Beasts. With Thunderbolt as a hostage, Xuanhuan's group didn't have to worry about any sudden attacks from the otherworldly realm. 2 days later, at the entrance of the valley, where the spiritual energy was the most abundant, Liamo successfully established contact with the first elder. When he learned that Qin Feng and a dozen other students were still alive, the first elder was overjoyed. Using the all-seeing mirror as a medium, the two of them immediately began to construct a teleportation array. After spending an entire day and night, the two of them worked together to finally build the teleportation array. Qin Feng hurriedly rushed back to bring the 16 students to the teleportation array. By the time they reached it, it was already afternoon. Liamo and Lai Yun had agreed to meet today, but they didn't know when they would arrive. Liamo and the others didn't dare to waste any time, and they immediately sent the students through the teleportation array. Having stayed here for 3 years, the students were naturally elated to be able to return. Just as 6 out of the 16 students had been sent away, the roar of a magical beast could be heard from the other side of the tunnel. However, this roar came from a single magical beast and not from a group of magical beasts like last time. It's the sound of Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt exclaimed excitedly. Who's Thunderbolt? Xuanhuan looked toward the cave entrance. Thunderbolt is Thunderbolt's father, the cloud-devouring beast that you and that ice-faced fellow killed together. Thunderbolt answered honestly, Thunderbolt is my demonic beast and Thunderbolt is my brother's demonic beast. My brother is here. I advise you to run away or else you won't have a chance. Really? Xuanhuan smiled, not the slightest bit afraid. I'm curious though. How many eyes does this godlike fellow have? As soon as Xuanhuan finished speaking, a black-furred, slender, dog-shaped magical beast ran out of the cave. This must be Pai Lai, Thunderbolt's father, the magical beast that Thunderbolt had mentioned. Indeed, the two beasts looked exactly the same. Because she had seen the cloud-devouring beast in its true form, Xuanhuan didn't dare to treat it as an ordinary dog-like beast, as she had seen Thunderbolt for the first time. Following behind the magical beast was Lai Yun, who was dressed in red, followed by a blue-robed man with a head full of red hair and a devilish appearance. Behind the man were 3 muscular warriors. Their attire was exactly the same as the warriors in the dream. When Xuanhuan saw the red-haired man, her heart trembled. She clearly remembered that this was the red-haired man who had barged into the cottage in her dream. Who's he? Xuanhuan suddenly pointed at the man, her voice so loud that Liamo, Zhuifeng, and Thunderclap all turned to look at her. He's my brother, Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt replied. He's a second-rank blade master. Hurry up and let me go, lest my brother gets angry and makes all of you die horribly. Even if we die horribly, we'll make sure to make you our scapegoats. Zhuifeng turned back and glanced coldly at Thunderbolt. By this time, 8 of the students had already passed through the formation, and the remaining 8 were about to pass through. It would take time for the 8 of them to pass through the formation. What do we do? Qin Feng asked Liamo continue. Liamo looked at the group of people walking out of the cave. We'll hold them off until all the students return. Liamo walked forward and Yun Ruoyan handed Thunderbolt to Zhuo Yifeng. She and Liamo walked side by side, while Zhuo Yifeng followed behind with Thunderbolt. The two of them stood some distance away from each other, facing each other. Thunderbolt, are you alright? Lai Yun asked Yun Ruoyan and the others. Yun Ruoyan and Liamo took 2 steps to the side, revealing Thunderbolt, who was being held captive by Zhuo Yifeng. Not dead yet, Thunderbolt replied, craning his neck. Where's the person we're looking for? Yun Ruoyan asked, her gaze landing on the blue-robed Thunderbolt Badian standing behind Lai Yun. Thunderbolt Baishan's seductive face remained expressionless as he extended his hand and gestured to the few burly men behind him. A woman walked out from behind the burly man. Her hands, feet and neck were all shackled. Her face was haggard and she looked haggard. Her clothes were tattered to the point that they barely covered her body. Behind the woman was a warrior, who pushed the woman along the way, causing her to stagger. Lan Ning. Qin Feng's voice came from behind, agitated and angry. Liamo, she's my female instructor, Lan Ning. What did these beasts do to her? I'm going to kill them. Liamo, Zhuo Yifeng, Yun Ruoyan, and the remaining students were also infuriated by the female instructor's description. I've brought the person you're looking for, Lai Yun began. Release Thunderbolt now. You guys let our people come over first. Zhuo Yifeng tightened his grip on Thunderclap, and with a loud crack, Thunderclap let out a muffled groan. How dare you? Lai Yun shouted at Zhuo Yifeng. You've injured our man so badly that I'd like nothing more than to break his arm. Zhuo Yifeng growled. Release our man now. Don't doubt me. If you try anything funny, I'll kill him. As soon as Zhuo Yifeng finished speaking, Thunderbolt groaned once more. Yun Ruoyan saw that one of Thunderbolt's arms had already been deformed by Zhuo Yifeng's grip. Thunderbolt gritted his teeth and didn't make a sound. We'll release him first. Thunderbolt Badian finally spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it reached everyone's ears. Yes, master. The burly man who was holding Lan Ning unlocked the shackles on her feet and pushed her forward. Lan Ning staggered a step forward, then walked towards Zhuo Yifeng and the others step by step. Master, those hamsters are using a teleportation array to escape, one of the burly men whispered to Thunderbolt Badian. Thunderbolt Badian took out a red handkerchief from his sleeve and wiped his hands. So what if they're escaping? They're just a bunch of insignificant beasts. Keep an eye on the 3 in front, or I'll skin them alive. No, leave that woman for me. Thunderbolt Badian pointed at Yun Ruoyan. She's worth more than this. I don't do business that's a loss. Yun Ruoyan and Liamo's gazes were constantly on Thunderbolt Badian. Naturally, they hadn't missed him when he pointed at Yun Ruoyan. Yin, follow behind me and don't act rashly. Liamo could sense that Yun Ruoyan seemed to hate Thunderbolt Badian, and he was afraid that she would act rashly. They've all been sent away. At this moment, Qin Feng walked up from behind. He held the gigantic saber in his hand and stood together with the 3 of them. Master Qin. Only then did Lan Ning see Qin Feng. Her eyes, which seemed to have dried up, were filled with tears. Lan Ning. Qin Feng called out. He walked forward, put away his sword and took off his outer robe. Lan Ning, I'm sorry I didn't protect you well enough. However, just as Qin Feng was about to reach Lan Ning, Pai Lai, the sky-swallowing beast behind her, suddenly leaped forward like a bolt of lightning. Its original canine form instantly transformed into a gigantic pitch-black beast with a mouth full of sharp teeth. When Qin Feng saw this, he threw down the robe in his hands, pulled out his sword, and slashed at the sky-swallowing beast behind Lan Ning. Zhuo Yifeng was holding onto Thunderbolt so he couldn't attack. As for Liamo, he appeared between the sky-swallowing beast and Qin Feng in a flash of green light. At the same time, the sky-swallowing beast spat out a huge ball of flame towards Qin Feng and Zhuo Yifeng. Liamo was already in front of Qin Feng. He pushed out his palms and an ice shield appeared in front of him, blocking the ball of flame. Split up. A burly man by Pai Baishan's side commanded. The other 3 burly men behind him charged towards Yun Ruoyan, Zhuo Yifeng, and Qin Feng with a flash of sword light. It seemed as though each of them wanted to deal with Yun Ruoyan's group in one fell swoop. When Lai Yun saw this, she took out a flying dagger and was about to shoot it out, but Pai Badian stopped her. Miss Lai, you're a guest of the Pai family. How could we allow you to kill these lowly rats? Wouldn't it be more interesting if we just stood here and watched the show? When Lai Yun saw Pai Baishan's luxurious red robe and his hands behind his back, she said, but Thunderbolt is still in their hands. Chapter 322. Teach him a lesson so that he won't be so impulsive in the future, Lei Badian said indifferently. On the other side, Yun Ruoyan, Zhui Feng, and Qin Feng had already begun fighting with the three burly men. Yun Ruoyan took out her scarlet eye spirit sword, which she wielded in her hand. In addition, her movements were extremely nimble, and she attacked from afar or at close range. For a moment, the burly man, whose cultivation was higher than Yun Ruoyan's, wasn't able to gain an advantage over her. On the other side, Zhui Feng had his bowstring looped around Lei Yang's neck, controlling him in his hands. With Lei Yang as a shield and the jade cord spirit sword in his hand, Zhui Feng didn't look like he was going to lose. The only one who was struggling was Qin Feng. In the past 3 years, his cultivation had improved very little. Furthermore, Juk had just returned to his hand, so he wasn't 100% proficient in using it. As a result, after a dozen or so exchanges with the burly man, whose cultivation wasn't lower than his, he gradually began to show signs of strain. Liemo was still fighting with the heaven-devouring beast. Surprisingly, the heaven-devouring beast's cultivation had also reached the realm of consummate, and all of the flames it spat out were spiritual flames. Of those present, only Liemo's ice shield could withstand the flames. For those with lower cultivation than the heaven-devouring beast, Yun Ruoyan and the others would most likely be devoured by the flames in an instant. Liemo, Qin Feng can't hold on any longer. When Yun Ruoyan saw Qin Feng, who was being forced to retreat step by step while fighting with the brawny man, she couldn't help but anxiously shout out. Liemo had also noticed this, and just as he was looking at Qin Feng, the burly man suddenly used his other hand to shoot an icicle at Qin Feng. At this moment, Qin Feng was using Juk to block his opponent's slash, and he couldn't do anything about the icicle attack. All he could do was watch as the icicle shot toward his head. Retreat. At this moment, Liemo suddenly let out a low growl as he pushed the ice shield in his hands toward the heaven-devouring beast. The sudden burst of power clearly shocked the heaven-devouring beast. The sky-devouring beast howled as it was knocked back by the ice shield. In that split second, Liemo released a fireball at the 5 icicles that were shooting toward Qin Feng. Liemo's fireball was much faster than the icicles, and in the blink of an eye, it had enveloped all 5 icicles. When the burly man saw that a fireball had appeared out of nowhere and melted his icicle, he subconsciously turned to Liemo. Just as he turned his gaze over, 2 slender icicles accurately pierced into his eyes. Before he could let out a howl, the sturdy man's body fell to the ground with a bang. This scene shocked Lai Yun, who was watching the show. She turned to Lei Badian and asked, "Didn't they say that the gophers are weak and incompetent with low cultivation bases? Why are these gophers so strong?" Lei Badian narrowed his eyes slightly, his gaze falling unblinkingly on Liemo. Some of the gophers have high cultivation bases as well. For example, this one here is a peak first-rank blade master. Such a person would only be considered a mid-tier expert on the Xuanhuan continent, but on the gophers continent, he's probably a top-tier expert. A top-tier expert? Lai Yun continued. Has there ever been such a powerful gopher on the Xuanhuan continent before? Yes. Lei Badian said. The Zheng family came from a low-tier continent, so no matter how long they stayed on the Xuanhuan continent, they were considered the lowest of the low. Gophers belong in the gophers' world. Those who try to snatch territory from us mid-tier continents don't have a good ending. Then why would they come to our continent? Lai Yun asked. That's not up to them, Lei Badian said. Lai Yun wanted to ask more questions, but Lei Badian stopped her with a hand gesture. The two of them continued to observe the battle in front of them. After the sky-devouring beast was repelled, it quickly launched another attack on Liemo. This time it didn't spit fire, but instead used its sharp fangs and claws to bite at Liemo. Liemo didn't face it head-on. Instead, he dodged to Yun Ruoyan's side. Although Yun Ruoyan's cultivation was comparable to that of the burly man she was fighting, she was slightly weaker in terms of stamina. Just as Yun Ruoyan was about to run out of stamina, Liemo arrived near her. While dodging the sky-devouring beast, he sent a beam of spiritual energy toward the burly man. The burly man reacted quickly. When he saw the beam of spiritual energy heading toward his face, he raised his sword to block it. The light of spirit power hit the spirit sword in the big man's hand. With a clang, the spirit sword in the big man's hand was knocked away. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yun Ruoyan pointed the scarlet eye sword at the burly man's chest. The sword flew out of her hand and shot straight out of the burly man's chest. Due to the extremely high temperature of the scarlet eye spirit sword, a charred wound was left on the burly man's chest where his heart had been pierced. Go help Zhui Feng, Liemo instructed Yun Ruoyan. All right. Yun Ruoyan nodded and went to Zhui Yifeng's side, helping him deal with the burly 9th-rank blade master. Qin Feng, on the other hand, protected Lan Ying as they retreated. With Yun Ruoyan's help, Zhui Yifeng was able to relax considerably. 2 8th-rank blade masters quickly gained the upper hand against a 9th-rank blade master. It's useless. At this time, Lei Yang, who had been spinning around like a top in Zhui Yifeng's hand, panted and said, "These warriors are just dogs raised by my Lei family. It's useless even if you kill them all. As long as my brother makes a move, you will still die." Then why isn't he making a move? Yun Ruoyan asked. He's just watching the show. When he's done watching, he'll naturally make a move. At that time you'll all be dead. If you stop now, I can plead with my brother to spare your lives. He didn't sound arrogant on purpose, so Yun Ruoyan didn't doubt his words at all. You don't have to worry about that. You should worry about yourself, Yun Ruoyan replied. Shi Liemo, Zhui Yifeng, and Qin Feng all had teleportation scrolls in their hands. In the end, they would still have a chance to escape. However, there were only 4 teleportation scrolls, and they couldn't take Lan Ying away with them. As such, they needed Qin Feng to protect Lan Ying. That big guy wants to protect that woman and escape, Lai Yun said. Lei Badian looked in Qin Feng and Lan Ying's direction and saw that not far behind them, there was a formation glowing with white light. Lei Batian's mouth curved into a cold smile. Then he flipped his hand and took out a talisman and threw it toward the formation. The talisman suddenly expanded in midair and sped toward the formation like an eagle with wings. Then a bolt of lightning struck the formation from the talisman. After being hit by such a strong impact, the white light on the formation flashed and disappeared. This scene fell into everyone's eyes. Everyone was shocked, including Liemo. Liemo had heard the first elder talk about the power of talismans. A few days ago, Yun Ruoyan gave him a talisman. This was the first time Liemo had seen such a thing in his life, but he never expected it to be so powerful. A small paper talisman infused with spiritual power was able to instantly destroy a formation that took 2 peak stage cultivators a day and a night to set up. What kind of powerful force was required to do this? When Qin Feng and Lan Ying saw that the space array was destroyed, their eyes were filled with despair. The 2 of them were stunned on the way. Lan Ying, take this. This is a spatial scroll. Qin Feng took out a spatial scroll and handed it to Lan Ying. Open it now and you can go home. A spatial scroll? Lan Ying took the spatial scroll in her hand and looked at Qin Feng. Let's go together. A spatial scroll can only send 1 person away at a time. You go first. I'll go with Liemo and the others, Qin Feng urged. You go first. Lan Ying saw that Qin Feng was acting strangely. She was about to speak again when she suddenly felt a pain in her chest. Then she spat out a mouthful of blood. Then Lan Ying's legs went soft. Although she was supported by Qin Feng, she still slid to the ground as if she was deflated. Lan Ying, what happened to you? Lan Ying. Qin Feng held Lan Ying and asked anxiously. Lan Ying kept spitting out blood, and a purple-black palm print slowly appeared on her chest. Lei Badian. Lan Ying looked angrily in the direction of the cave entrance. There, a blue figure stood quietly. Lan Ying looked at the demon-like figure and stopped breathing. Lan Ying, Lan Ying. Qin Feng called Lan Ying's name loudly, but Lan Ying could no longer give him any reaction. Qin Feng's gaze followed Lan Ying's and landed on Lei Badian. Brother Tian, what happened to that woman? Lai Yun asked Lei Badian in confusion. Dead. Lei Badian said indifferently. In this world, those who want to threaten me must die, not to mention a group of rats from a low-level continent. After Lei Badian finished speaking, he took out the exquisite red handkerchief and carefully wiped his fingers. It turned out that when Lan Ying was brought into this passage, Lei Badian gently touched her body. At that time she didn't feel anything at all. However, she didn't expect that at that time, Lei Badian would actually inject his overbearing spiritual energy into Lan Ying's body. It was only now that the spiritual energy had reached her heart meridian and destroyed it. Lei Badian. Qin Feng looked at Lei Badian with bloodshot eyes. The scene of him being bullied by him in the past appeared in his mind. 2 male teachers were beaten to death by his subordinates. The rest of the teachers were also killed by them in the human hunting game. Now Lan Ying also died in his hands. Qin Feng felt the hatred in his heart as if it was going to burst out of his chest. In the past, in order to protect the lives of the 16 students, he didn't hesitate to live like a coward. Now all 16 students had been sent away. Qin Feng no longer had any worries. Looking at Lan Ying's unreconciled appearance, The hatred in Qin Feng's heart that filled his chest could no longer be suppressed. He gently put Lan Ning on the ground, then stood up. He pointed the great ravager in his hand at Lei Badian and said fiercely, "If I don't kill you, I'm not a man." Chapter 324. Liu Mo, are you alright? Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but panic when she saw Liu Mo vomiting blood. Liu Mo shook his head weakly, closed his eyes and fainted. The two of them carried Liu Mo to the First Elder's training room. The First Elder fed Liu Mo a spiritual pill, then infused spiritual energy into his body to treat his wounds. After an entire day and night, the healing process finally came to an end. Yun Ruoyan checked on Liu Mo and found that his pale face hadn't improved much. "First Elder, how's Liu Mo?" Yun Ruoyan asked the First Elder, who seemed much older than before. "I use spiritual energy to protect his heart meridians, but the person who injured him cultivates a very strange spiritual technique. The spiritual energy I infused into Liu Mo's body is circulating erratically, and I can't quite grasp it." The First Elder frowned at Yun Ruoyan. "I've protected Liu Mo's heart meridians, but I can't guarantee that he'll be fine in the future. Ruoyan, what kind of expert did you encounter?" Hearing the First Elder's words, Yun Ruoyan's heart was filled with anxiety and worry. She forced herself to calm down and told the First Elder about their experiences in the alternate dimension. "You actually encountered Pai Badian?" The First Elder was clearly shocked by Yun Ruoyan's words. From his tone, Yun Ruoyan could tell that he seemed to know this Pai Badian. "First Elder, do you know this Pai Badian?" Yun Ruoyan asked. "Not only do I know him, I've even fought him before." The Great Elder said, "At that time he injured me to the point where my life was hanging by a thread. It wasn't easy for me to escape." So when the First Elder had first entered the alternate dimension, he had encountered Pai Badian and had suffered greatly at his hands. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but ask, and the First Elder began to tell her about a painful past that he had never mentioned to anyone else. Back when the First Elder had entered the alternate dimension, he had entered the Pai family's territory. The people of the alternate dimension were very disdainful of those who entered from the lower continents, and the Pai family was the most prominent of them all. The Great Elder had said that it didn't matter how high one's cultivation was, or how high one's status was in the Deep Abyss continent. Once they were on the Dark Abyss continent, they would be nothing more than the lowliest of slaves. According to Great Elder Dark, anyone who entered a different world had the status of a slave and did the most lowly things that slaves did. This was also the reason why Great Elder Yin Lan and the others who came back from a different world never took the initiative to mention a different world. Every single one of them had an extremely high status on the Xuanhuan continent. Getting them to talk about their experiences as slaves was sometimes even more difficult than killing them. The Great Elder said that his first job was to raise horses in the Pai clan stables. Once, Pai Badian brought a young child to the stables to shoot arrows. The Great Elder accompanied them as a stableman. One of the horses was suddenly startled and the child was thrown off the horse. Although the child was young at that time, he had already begun to cultivate, so he was not injured. Seeing that the child was not injured, the Great Elder did not care too much. He stepped forward and helped the child up. What he didn't expect, however, was that as soon as he helped the child up, a red whip appeared above his head. At that time, the Great Elder was already a peak 9th rank blade master, only a step away from becoming a sword saint. Therefore the Great Elder was able to dodge the whip. Thunderclap Heavenly General was very surprised that the Great Elder had dodged his attack. Moreover, he seemed to have suddenly become interested and dismounted from his horse to engage in a battle with the Great Elder. The result of the battle was undoubtedly the Great Elder's defeat. At the time, the Great Elder had received several lashes from Pai Badian. Fortunately, Pai Badian didn't go all out, so even though he was on the verge of death, he still managed to survive. I was about the same age as Liu Mo back then, and a 9th rank blade master's cultivation was already top-notch on the Xuanhuan continent. Pai Badian, on the other hand, looked even younger than me, but his cultivation had already surpassed mine, the Great Elder sighed. First Elder, are you sure that Thunderbolt Badian was only slightly younger than you? Yun Ruoyan asked doubtfully. I'm sure. What's wrong? Great Elder asked. The Pai Badian we saw didn't look much older than Liu Mo. He had the appearance of a youth, but according to you, he should have been about the same age as my father, Yun Ruoyan replied. You might not be aware of this. The Great Elder sat down on a chair. Once a blade master reaches the realm of a sword saint, the process of aging will be lengthened. 10 years for a normal blade master is only a year for us. Pai Badian entered the realm much earlier than I did, so he naturally looked younger than I did. In fact, he was about the same age as your parents. The Great Elder told Yun Ruoyan that Pai Badian had clearly intended to kill Li Mo. Yun Ruoyan asked the Great Elder if there was a way to save Li Mo. As long as there was a way, she was willing to do it, no matter how difficult. However, the Great Elder shook his head. I've already done my best. Li Mo was heavily injured in the past, but he managed to survive on his own. I'm afraid he'll have to rely on himself again this time. Because the Great Elder had expended too much spiritual energy to treat Li Mo's injuries, he had to immediately go into seclusion to cultivate. As a result, Yun Ruoyan was left alone by Li Mo's side. Li Mo lay silently on his bed, his handsome face as still as ever. Other than the slight rise and fall of his chest, there was no sign of life. Yun Ruoyan stayed by Li Mo's bedside, watching over him from day to night. Li Mo didn't react in the slightest. Yun Ruoyan held Li Mo's hand in hers. His hand was colder than it had ever been. Yun Ruoyan's heart was filled with sorrow and fear, as if the most important part of her life was about to be taken away from her. Li Mo, you can't let anything happen to you. You can't abandon me, do you understand? Yun Ruoyan caressed Li Mo's pale, determined face. She stood up, bent down and planted a kiss on Li Mo's lips. Just as Yun Ruoyan's lips touched Li Mo's lips, Yun Ruoyan suddenly felt a reaction from Li Mo. Li Mo, are you awake? Are you awake? If you're awake, open your eyes and look at me, alright? Yun Ruoyan hurriedly stood up and looked down at Li Mo. She stared unblinkingly at Li Mo. She was sure that Li Mo had opened his eyes slightly, but now they were tightly shut. Yun Ruoyan thought that her eyes were playing tricks on her. Her heart ached and her tears fell onto Li Mo's lips. Yun Ruoyan once again bent down and kissed Li Mo's tear-stained lips. This time Yun Ruoyan could clearly see Li Mo open his eyes. Although it was only slightly, Yun Ruoyan was certain that Li Mo was reacting to her presence. Because when she kissed Li Mo actually responded to her by kissing her back. Yun Ruoyan, however, didn't dare to leave Li Mo's side. As she kissed him, Li Mo's eyes slowly opened. Li Mo's hands also slowly lifted up, pulling Yun Ruoyan's small body into his embrace. His cold hands caressed Yun Ruoyan's cheeks. At first they were cold, but slowly they warmed up. Li Mo, you. Yun Ruoyan was both surprised and happy. Li Mo had actually woken up, and it didn't seem like there was anything wrong with his body. Yun Ruoyan was about to get up to inform the First Elder, but Li Mo tightened his arms around her. Li Mo's still somewhat weak voice rang out beside her ear. Yin, don't go. I need you to treat my wounds. Yun Ruoyan looked at Li Mo's face. His previously rosy cheeks were rapidly turning white, and his body temperature was rapidly dropping. Li Mo, how should I treat your wounds? Yun Ruoyan asked hurriedly. Li Mo held Yun Ruoyan in his arms, his voice weak. I want you to give yourself to me right now. Yun Ruoyan naturally understood Li Mo's words. Her eyes slowly widened as if she'd heard something inconceivable. She raised her head and looked at Li Mo incredulously. Can I really treat your wounds like this? But now. Yin, I need you to heal me. That way you can heal me. Li Mo's voice was weak but certain. Their eyes met, and Yun Ruoyan's face reddened slightly. She nodded at Li Mo. Although she was confused, as long as she could save Li Mo's life, they were already husband and wife. Yun Ruoyan stood up and put down the curtains, then gently took off the gauze, revealing her fair, jade-like body to Li Mo once more. Yun Ruoyan nimbly took off Li Mo's clothes, revealing his firm, cold chest. His injured arm had already been bandaged, and Yun Ruoyan was careful not to touch his wounds. Just as Yun Ruoyan was being careful, Li Mo used his other uninjured arm to pull her into his embrace once more. This time Yun Ruoyan completely believed Li Mo's words. As the two bodies intertwined, Yun Ruoyan could feel that his vitality was slowly returning. Yun Ruoyan was very confused. She hadn't known that there was such a healing technique in this world. Li Mo, what's the matter? Yun Ruoyan was about to ask, but Li Mo stopped her with a kiss. Yin, don't ask me anything now. I'll tell you everything but not now, Li Mo murmured by her ear. Yun Ruoyan slowly sank back into the warm embrace of the sea. It was the same feeling she'd had on the night she and Li Mo had consummated their marriage. Warm, comfortable, and intoxicated. In Yun Ruoyan's eyes, Li Mo had always been a relatively strong presence. Apart from the first time they had met, when he had been severely injured, this was the first time Yun Ruoyan had seen him injured. Yin, it's all thanks to you treating my wounds this time. Otherwise I really would have died. Liemo stroked Yun Ruoyan's hair. Yun Ruoyan asked curiously, I treated your wounds? She suddenly remembered that Liemo had said that he needed her help to treat his wounds, and then he had pounced on her. Could this be what he was referring to? As soon as Yun Ruoyan thought of this possibility, Liemo spoke up. Yin, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but I've never had a suitable opportunity. Actually, there are times when there's a chance, but I don't know how to tell you. What is it? Why don't you know how to tell me? Liemo's words had aroused all of Yun Ruoyan's doubts. She sat up and looked at him. Because I'm afraid, Liemo replied honestly. I'm afraid that you'll get angry and leave me. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but laugh at Liemo's serious expression. Your Highness, is there really something that you're afraid of? In the past, I wasn't afraid of anything, but that's because I didn't care about anything. Now that I care about something, I'm naturally afraid. Liemo's tone and expression were both serious. Yun Ruoyan leaned back on Liemo's shoulders and looked at his chiseled, jade-like chin. I'm yours now. What are you afraid of? You're mine now. Liemo sighed as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He wrapped his arms tightly around Yun Ruoyan. You once said that you didn't want any secrets between us, and you've already told me all of your secrets. Naturally, I shouldn't hide anything from you. Even if you'll get angry, I'll tell you everything. But you have to promise me that if you're angry, you can hit me or yell at me, but you're not allowed to leave. Yun Ruoyan frowned. What could it be that Liemo was so serious about? Could it be that he had other women besides her? If that was the case, it really wouldn't be something that could be resolved with just physical abuse. Just as Yun Ruoyan was deep in thought, Liemo began, Yin, I actually had a motive for getting close to you. Yun Ruoyan's train of thought was interrupted. Motive? What motive? Yun Ruoyan clearly remembered that when she had first met Liemo, she had still been the pitiful, ugly second miss of the Yun family. She was neither favored nor beautiful, so what motive could Liemo have for getting close to her? Because I want your body. Liemo looked at Yun Ruoyan, his hand resting on her smooth, slender shoulder. His icy blue eyes seemed to burn with a fire. Hearing Liemo's words and seeing his expression, Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but blush again. Liemo's next words, however, were completely out of her expectations. I don't want your body because I've fallen in love with you at first sight. In fact, I didn't fall in love with you at first, Liemo continued. I want your body because you have a cauldron constitution, and your body will be of great help to my cultivation. Yun Ruoyan froze. This was the first time she had heard of a cauldron constitution, and she needed some time to process it. Cauldron constitution? What's a cauldron constitution? Yun Ruoyan asked. Liemo didn't hold back at all as to what a furnace physique was, as well as its advantages and disadvantages. Those with a cauldron constitution not only have extremely high talent for cultivation, but they also have a unique advantage when faced with bottlenecks in their cultivation. This constitution also has a certain degree of resistance to poisons. The fact that you were able to survive and retain your cultivation after being poisoned by the broodmother parasite has a lot to do with your constitution, Liemo continued. Not only that, but if you can cultivate with someone with a cauldron constitution, you'll be able to help them break through their bottlenecks and advance their cultivation. Liemo told Yun Ruoyan that before he had learned of Yun Ruoyan's cauldron constitution, he had been a 9th-rank blade master for 2 years, but he had been unable to break through. As a result, when he found out that she was a cauldron, he couldn't help but think of cultivating with her. Liemo hugged Yun Ruoyan even tighter. The slaughtering king, who had always been fearless, was now most afraid that Yun Ruoyan would suddenly go berserk. In that case, you broke through to become a peak blade master on the night of our wedding night? Yun Ruoyan didn't go berserk, nor did she go berserk. Instead, her tone was surprisingly calm. Yes, Liemo replied. I'd been accumulating spiritual energy for nearly 3 years, but I hadn't been able to break through. The moment I joined hands with you, all of my spiritual energy gushed out like a flood, breaking through my bottleneck and advancing from 9th rank to a peak blade master. In that case, did you recover from your injuries because of my physique? Yun Ruoyan asked. Yes, Liemo replied. I didn't expect your constitution to be able to help me recuperate. The spiritual energy that Thunderbolt Badian sent into my body was extremely domineering, and while I was unconscious, I tried to force it out of my body, but I wasn't a match for it. But when you kissed me, when your body neared mine, the weak spiritual energy in my body suddenly grew stronger. Liemo looked at Yun Ruoyan's expression. She had only been shocked at first, but now she was as calm as ever. But the more she was calm, the less confidently Mo felt. If she had been a little more agitated and questioned him on why he had lied to her, or coldly accused him of lying, Mo would have found it much more normal. Since Xuanhuan didn't ask any questions, Xuanhuan could only explain herself. At first I was worried that this would harm your body, and that if you felt even the slightest discomfort I would stop immediately. But I found that you didn't feel any discomfort at all. In fact, you seemed to be enjoying it. When Xuanhuan heard Mo's words, she turned away. I've kept it from you. As long as you can forgive me, I'll let you do whatever you want to me, but I won't let you leave. No matter what, you're already my consort, and no matter what, you'll always be my consort. Xuanhuan didn't respond for a long time. Finally she asked, Mo, when did you start liking me? The first time I was attracted to you was at the flower viewing party. You had an ugly face, but you exuded the aura of a peerless beauty. At that time I felt that you weren't as simple as you seemed. Then, in the lake in the Phoenix Orchard, I saw your true face and I almost had you. Mo's words stirred up Xuanhuan's memories. When Mo mentioned the flower viewing party and the lake in the Phoenix Orchid Forest, the face of a devilish man suddenly appeared in front of Xuanhuan's eyes. Xuanhuan suddenly struggled to sit up in Mo's embrace. So that man was you. That you're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.